All right, it is officially the Christmas season. It is November the 4th, 2024. I hope everybody had a safe and fun Halloween season, I guess you could say, time of the year. We are joined, of course, by Tony Ferrari of the Hockey News, and of course, a new addition to the Scouching YouTube channel. Tony is here to, help share a bit of the preview of the show that's coming this week with Landon DuPont. We have a little bit of a sneak peek for you. And he came with a prepared written statement for today. He came with papers and everything. So I'm going to let Tony take over for a few minutes, and he can rain his knowledge on us because I don't know what's coming. But here's Tony.
Well, first off, I have to put my hat forward because we're dealing with serious business here. I'd like to apologize to anyone that I hurt with this statement, but it is a necessary statement. Last time I came on the show, I proclaimed the QMJHL is back. I, in fact, did lie. The QMJHL still sucks, and I have no further statement.
Wow. Dropping the hammer right off the bat. Where is this coming from? What happened to you? What, why, how? Explain yourself, sir, so that people, maybe the reaction can be blunted a little bit.
The reaction will not be blunted.
No, it won't. It definitely
won't. The league is not good still. Where this comes from is watching the QMJHL once again. Justin Carbonneau, Caleb Denoyer, Bill Zahn, as I go through the list of all the top QMJHLs this year, it's just underwhelming. At one point, I had Bill Zonin as my top QMJHL guy, and Will, you've seen him. He's fine. He's perfectly good. But in a class where you're supposed to have guys that are up near the top of the draft board, once again, competing for top 10 spots, I know other lists have been released, and guys like Caleb Denoyer are right up near the top. Justin Carbonneau is a first-round pick on a lot of lists. I just continue to be underwhelmed by the league. And the fact of the matter is, all of the same issues we've been having for the last 5 years in the Q continue to be issues. The pace is low. Guys are relying so much on skill and purely playing in the offensive zone. They don't know how to really play the full game of hockey, but they're really good at shinny. Like, they are great beer league players. And the QMJHL is fun sometimes because of it. But man, this year I really thought maybe we're back. But I don't know.
There are players this year who I like more than usual coming out of that area of the country. But I do agree in the sense of, like, seeing them really, really high, I think is questionable. But there are a few where I'm kind of like, yeah, I see the appeal of these guys, and maybe there's something at the end of the day. Like you mentioned, Justin Carbonneau, in terms of one-on-one skill and a guy who, can dipsy doodle dangle, there's pretty good. He's pretty good at it. In this draft class, he's got first-round raw talent. I don't know if it's like projectable or you can put it all together long-term, but that's a thing, I guess. But yeah, I did start out a lot more optimistic this season. But also, I mean, a lot of players this season, optimism is a little bit waning, but that's neither here nor there. But I appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate the statement. We'll see how people seem to be right on board with you in the chat so far.
Yeah. I think it was, I don't know if it was you or if it was someone else I was talking to about Justin Carbonneau, and I think it was you. You compared him to Antonio Stranges. And I'm like, yeah, no, like that makes a lot of sense. Like, really skilled, can make some really fun stuff happen in the offensive zone. When you're watching the highlight reel, you're like, oh, like he can do that. Like there aren't very many other players in the draft class that can do that. But the problem is, like, getting him to the point where he can do that, it's so reliant on someone else. It's so reliant on someone blowing through the neutral zone and him just kind of stepping over the blue line and then doing his thing and not really contributing outside of that highlight reel, essentially. So
right.
There's going to be some guys drafted from the Q this year. I do think it's better than the last few years. A guy like Nathan Quinn is like a solid guy. Bill Zahn, and I mentioned before, like I don't hate Bill Zahn, and he is pretty decent player, and I like a lot of the things that he's done. But like, you look up and down this list of guys that, like, I don't know, like Liam Kilfoyle, just a guy that I think a lot of people were hyped on coming out of the Holinka and stuff, and he's fine. Like, he's a guy, he's playing in the queue, but they're just not quite what I expected this year.
Yeah, I mean, I will say in Quebec though, I wish this kid were 15 days younger. Xavier Villeneuve, that kid can rock. He is sick. We'll see what happens with him next year, but if he were a draft eligible, I think there would be quite a lot of attention given to him, except he's 5'10", so he's probably a second round pick that everyone goes, how did anyone not see this guy and see how good he was? But he's been excellent for 2 seasons now in Quebec. But anywho, so what we're going to do today on the show, other than malign and a third of the nation in which we live, we're going to talk a little bit about players outside of the super high ranges of this draft who we've been taking a look at, as well as plenty of guys, a pretty specific and long list of guys who both of us have seen in the recent past. Taking a look at comparing what we're seeing of them. Tony was gracious enough to send me a relatively rough and early version of some sort of ordering of players, and it's quite different to mine. So this could be a very interesting evening. And yeah, of course, we're going to share a little bit of a preview of the show that Tony's been putting together with us, with Landon DuPont. And I believe it's known who our second person is. AJ, is that correct?
It's known.
Yeah, okay. So Michael Meese
on the
is
thumbnail too.
Yeah, and yeah, that's true. Right. And we've got number 3 on the way. And then, of course, we're going to answer some questions down in the back half. So, Tony, you came with this idea of sort of second round level guys or guys that could be available there. Throw out what are you thinking there? What's the onus behind this? And I'll let you spearhead this.
Well, the first guy I want to mention, and I kind of mentioned him earlier, I think before the show when we were talking, but Matej Pikash, I don't know what pronunciation we're going with this year, but he's been super fun to watch this year. Physically, like, there's some limitations with him along the boards and everything, but he just, in the last 2 games I've watched of him, he just always seems to be around the puck. There's a loose puck in a couple guys' feet. He kind of comes in, swoops out, pulls the puck out, and just makes a play. There's so many times where I was watching him and he just has this speed and skill to really just affect the game. His playmaking was really, really impressive, really precise passer, and he has some creativity to his game too. I want to see it continue through the year because I've seen him before and this wasn't always there. So maybe it was a consistency issue prior to this, but yeah, the last 2 games I've watched of him have been absolutely fantastic, and a guy that's really continuing play. He may not be the guy that initially drives the play up ice, but there are so many times where play starts to break down. He finds a way to continue it. He finds a way to keep making things happen. And that's what I really liked about his game.
Yeah, I've seen him quite often. Of all of the guys on that Czech team at the Holinka, he's the one that I was marking down the most, just because of the quickness that I saw in his game. And I think adjusting, he is a bit slender and a bit small, but he is very young. So that is something to keep in mind as well. But I agree. I mean, he's a guy who I think the first time I watched him in the WHL with Seattle, the team in Seattle is not amazing. He looked like he was a little bit physically outmatched, but he was trying. You could see him going and going and going. The data that I tracked from the first game he did nothing on the offensive zone. There was just no offense to speak of, but he was very engaged off the puck. He was very involved offensively. He was out there zipping and zooming and doing his thing, and generated a little bit for his team, but wasn't, the most involved offensive guy yet. But it seems like in recent weeks, I didn't even bother looking before the show, but it seems like his point production has really taken a jump in the last little while. So yeah, I mean, I love also that this is another Matej Pikash, after we had a previous one, I believe a Buffalo Sabre draft pick. Yeah. But yeah, he went on a 5-game point streak of 7 points in 5 games. So that kind of got him back up to around a point a game, I suppose. I believe Seattle is also adding Radim Murtka, right? So there's 2 pretty good Czech players on that team. And yeah, I mean, he's one that I've been curious about all year since the Holinka. The first game I tracked wasn't amazing, but every time I've tuned in, I've liked what I've seen. So an interesting call on him. I'll throw one at you. I could maybe throw one that I have as maybe a guy that probably could be a second rounder that might be an interesting one to keep an eye on. I've been a really big fan of Conrad Fondrk on the U.S. national team. I haven't heard a whole lot about him going into this draft season to this point. Like I have him as an average rank as like a late first rounder right now, but not everybody has him on a list. And I just think that there's so much to like with him in terms of the quickness and the speed that he's got. He's a net driving guy with the puck on his stick. He really pushes the game up the ice, unlike a lot of other players on that team. The NTDP this year is, I'd say, a mixed bag. But I think Fondrk, even though he only has 5 points this season, I don't really think about that too much. I think he's done a pretty good job driving play and driving offense as best as he could. And again, similar to Pekash, there's like a little bit of the physical issues there, like getting outmatched physically and all of that. But he's the guy that I think I have sort of shortlisted for that second round. But I also assume that guys like LJ Mooney are probably going to be there as well. But that seems like too easy of an answer.
Yeah, with Fondrk, I think the biggest thing is the NTDP kind of isn't great this year, and we're used to having at least like a solid team. And this year, it just seems like a collection of guys. Every time I watch them, I'm like, this isn't the same level of play I've seen going back to like 2017, 18 even. It's a bit of an underwhelming group, and because of that, point totals are a little bit muted. And you mentioned that he only has 5 points, but you see a lot of the things that he's doing. He's able to kind of drive that play up ice and be a functional player. Like there are a number of times this year where I've seen him make a play and it just bounces off a guy's stick, or whoever he's passing to just isn't prepared for the pass. And it's tough because evaluating a guy in that environment is always a bit of an issue. I think we go back to Brad Lambert's draft year, and that's a perfect example of a guy that was constantly creating and not getting the output because no one around him was helping him out. And maybe that's what's happening with Fondrk. I think I've liked him when I've seen him. Second round easily makes sense for me. And like you said, having him in the first round could easily be a thing in the late end. And but yeah, I haven't heard a whole lot about him. But at the end of the day, I don't think I've heard a whole lot about the NTDP in general. It's not a great team, and I don't think people are jumping all over a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough one. I mean, I did a game today of Asher Barnett, defenseman for the NTDP, and he was playing with Carter Amico, a guy who a lot of people seem to have in the first round. I mean, neither of those guys really moved the needle a whole lot for me, and they were playing Lake Superior State University and got absolutely killed on the score sheet, which, in previous years, the NTDP lines up pretty well with teams like Michigan and, Michigan State, and they've played those teams and done decently well. But this year, it does seem to be a little bit quiet. Did you have anyone else in mind other than little Czech Matej Pekar?
Yeah, the next name I'm gonna bring up is Michael Svirsek. Guy playing for Brynäs is just so fun to watch. The skill is there, the pace is there. Little bit not always the most physical player, which is sometimes an issue, but it's always been something that I've been criticized for not taking into account. But this is a kid that plays with pace, plays with physicality in a way that you don't necessarily see from a bit of an undersized player. He's not going to go out in there and blow up hits, but he's gets in on the boards and kind of wedges himself under. He leverages the fact that he is a little bit smaller than a lot of the defenders, and while they're trying to bear down on him, he's just kind of pushing his body up under them. And when he's able to kind of get the puck out of that situation and he gets into open ice, that's where he's a lot of fun to watch. Second round might be a little bit rich, but that's kind of where I have him right now, just because he really is just so fun to watch and so much skill. You want to see him kind of put the raw talent together because it is pretty raw at the moment, but there's in a class where you're struggling to often find players who are exciting. He's certainly an exciting one.
Yeah. Oh boy. Excuse me. wrong pipe. Yeah, I agree. I've got Svirsek in my second round right now. I think that the criticism is a little bit warranted with regards to the physical intensity side of things, but he's a battler. Like, I've seen him do it's a funny thing to me sometimes where you see a player who is a little smaller and people kind of criticize them in the same way, where they're a little bit, soft, so to speak. But then when you actually sit down and watch them, it's like, oh, they are in on the forecheck. They are first to the puck below the goal line. They're just retrieving it clean, right? He's a guy who, if you're sleeping, he'll find a way to sneak his way through and push his way into the offensive zone and beat you to the puck. So yeah, I think Sverchek is a guy that I have in my second round. He's probably going to stay there. The second game I did of his was really impressive. I think the speed and the pace of his game, like you said, is all really good. Central Scouting has him listed as a late round guy, like 6th or 7th round. I would easily be convinced to take a swing on him that late if he's still there. I do think he's a bit of a long shot, but I do really think that he's been quite impressive, to say the least, this season. I want to throw. I'll cheat a little bit and go with 2 names, because they both stuck out to me when I poked through them. I have been a doubter of this player's offensive ability for a while, going on 3 years now. But this season, I don't know what has happened. I don't know who got in his ear. But Jamiro Reber, I don't know how much you've seen of him in the SHL this season, but holy monkey, this is a guy who, I mean, last year my whole thing with him was he's doing everything except driving the puck to the middle of the ice in the offensive zone. Everything else, he was insanely, skilled on the transition, going both directions. Really intense player, does not take a shift off, just checks so many boxes, but you're going, yeah, but you're 5'9" and you're not really scoring the lights out. And it's a lot of it is power play stuff. And I don't know. And you saw him internationally and he just didn't quite have enough. But then I watched the first game he played in the SHL this year and he tried to score a lacrosse goal. And I'm like, well, the cojones on a kid to do that. He's barely eligible, or he was barely eligible for last year. Like, I think he's only like 2 weeks older than a guy like Bill Zonin. Right? Like, we're talking a guy who, compared to, let's say, Victor Eklund, might be 3 weeks older than Victor Eklund. And playing in the SHL, he's over a half a point a game. Every single time I've tuned in to watch him, I'm just going, he's quicker, he's more aggressive, he's more assertive. And there's something happening there that I'm going to keep an eye on. He's in my second round because I'm going, I just think he's taken such a big jump that you have to make note of it. But jumping out of Sweden, I did want to throw an interesting one out of the US. Speaking of extremely young players for their draft classes, but I've really liked Sioux City defenseman Anthony Alain Samake. Samake, I think is his last name. There's an accent over the E for he's a French Canadian, I believe, or he is Canadian, but he's playing for Sioux City. And I've really, really liked him. He's one of the youngest guys in the draft. Caught my eye in USHL preseason. I don't know how much you've seen of him, if at all, but super, super smart player. It's just, I think that the raw ability, the mobility, and the skill level just isn't quite there to be the sort of high-end forward or the high-end defenseman I think he could be. But there's a lot of really good ingredients there, and he's been a guy that's caught my eye pretty much every time I've watched him or watched that team or watching another team playing Sioux City. So he's another one I'd throw out there as well.
Well, Samaki, if that's how you pronounce it, I can honestly say I haven't watched him a whole lot, if at all.
Slacker, unbelievable.
Probably in passing. But to get to Jamiro Reber, this is a kid I had ranked last year, and you and I had a couple of discussions on him. And every time you were saying, I don't know if he's going to figure it out. I don't know if he's ever going to get to the middle of the ice, if he's going to be aggressive enough. And there were flashes of it last year. Admittedly, there were so many times where you were so frustrated because he would do like 90 to 95% of what you wanted to see, and then he wouldn't go to the middle of the ice, or he would have a perfect lane to the slot and he would cut it wide and then fire a shot or something silly like that. And it was just this little frustration of just, okay, you're young and maybe it comes over this next year. You mentioned how close he was to being eligible this year for the draft class. And that was always my big thing with him, is he was on my list towards the end. And I'm like, if that clicks, if that just, let's be more aggressive, simply that clicks, then you're going to have such a solid, smaller player. Admittedly, he is still going to have to prove himself at every level because he is 5'9", 5'10", maybe. And it's not going to be easy to play his game at that level, but man, he chains so many small plays together that you love seeing it. And that's a guy that I'm more than happy to have on my list as an overager. And I'm not usually big on overagers because at the end of the day, usually a guy wasn't drafted for a reason. I think with Reber, there was a bad reason to not draft him, at least in the late rounds. I mean, I'm sure we talk about Ustinkov and a few other guys in that regard as well. But yeah, I think Reber is such a solid guy to have in your second round this year, especially that high up for an overager. It's found money to me because, like you said, he's so close to being eligible this year. And there's a few guys in the draft class this year, even Picard, who I brought up, September 8th birthday. Like he's almost eligible for next year's draft class. And I think some of those same, hey, just get more aggressive, just be more consistently in the middle of the ice. And maybe that's the step that he has to take. And those are kind of the guys when they are a little bit younger like that, I look at and I go, you're so close to being really, really good. Can you get there? And at the end of the day, that's kind of what I want to take as a seventh round pick. I want to throw the dart at that guy rather than the 6'4" buffoon who can't really skate.
Yeah, I mean, with Reber, I think a big difference that I noticed with him in Sweden this season relative to last year is he's just quicker. Like he makes his decisions and executes them. So like there was a play he made where I think he got an assist and it went in, but he was just ripping down the boards, made a quick skill move to get around a defenseman along the boards. And then just like, it was like lightning quick, but he went below the goal line, behind the goalie. And I'm not sure if he spun around and passed back the way he was, or just a quick backhand pass to whoever was at the side of the net there, took the goalie with him, and it was an easy goal. And it's just like, I didn't even see that coming, and he pulled it off so quickly where I'm going, yeah, in the olden days last year, he probably would have just taken that for a skate, wrapped around the bottom back of the net, wrapped around to the blue line, looked fun carrying the puck and all that stuff, but he's getting to scoring areas a lot more, and he's driving stuff in the right direction. And yeah, like I think that if they're like, look at again Victor Eklund, right? I'm not sure exactly how much younger he is than Reber, but Reber's playing in the SHL, not Hockeyallsvenskan, and he's on pace for a 30-point season. And Victor Eklund is on pace for a 45-point Hockeyallsvenskan season, which is great. That's amazing. But one is being talked about as a top 5 pick, and the other is not that much smaller, if at all, and isn't even on Central Scouting's list at all. So to me, it's like, and they're very close in age. So people ask a lot on the show, and I'm sure they ask a lot about how important age is. But in cases like this, it's where it gets really interesting, is when you go, okay, there's an inefficiency here. There's a player who checks a lot of the same boxes that this top 5, top 10 guy does, but he's like just enough older to be a complete draft year apart. But now they're a lot more comparable. And I mean, I'm not saying I would rather have Reber over Victor Eklund, but I'm saying like in the context of the draft and what you're looking at and sort of evaluating things, that's where sort of age gets really, really interesting to me, because he is so close in age to a lot of these guys that are in the top half of the first round. And in this year's draft class, to me, it drops off so fast that it doesn't take long before I go, yeah, I mean, based on how he's played in the SHL, like, I'll take a flyer on the kid. Like he's really going, and I kind of wish I drafted him last year. I mean, my picks on my own list in the 6th, 7th round are doing well. Ludwig Johnson, SHL or National League superstar, finally playing. He played 18 minutes the other day. I'm not sure if you noticed that. He played 18 minutes in the National League the other day, which is pretty wild. But like Daniel Niemanen's also doing well in Finland. Danilo Stinkov's doing pretty well in Switzerland, but Jamiro Reber has just been amazing. So wanted to give him a shout out as well. So I don't know if you wanted to continue on with our next hit here, or if you had anyone else you wanted to bring up. I'm open for whatever you got.
So for quick reference, Victor Eklund, not William Eklund, Victor Eklund is an October 3rd birthday. Jamiro Reber is September 4th. They're less than a month apart. Yeah. So other players that are close, Malcolm Spence, September 22nd. Like who's this? Logan Hensler, October 14th. Like there are guys within a month and a few days that I'm like, I don't know. Like they're right there. And you, like you said, you look at guys that are so close in age, and because of the weird, like I get it, but I don't. at the same time, the September 15th cutoff, you get these awkward like debates of, oh, this guy
Yeah.
went undrafted and this guy's a top 5 pick, and they're a month apart, and one dude's well outperforming the other. So it's a fun little debate, and that's kind of why I'm comfortable putting a guy like Jameer Reber so high on my list, when usually I don't put a whole lot of overagers on my list.
Yeah, totally. I'd also throw Danilo Stinkov out there if we're talking overages, because I've watched a bit of him in the Swiss second division, and he's looked very good there as well. So he might be a re-entry worth taking a look at. I don't know if you're interested in defensemen who move really well and have some skill and shoot the puck pretty well and do a lot of things perfectly fine, but who knows?
Again, August 26th birthday, like a
very
month
young.
and a half out. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we could move on to more specific discussions. I mean, we got a whole list of guys here that we've all seen recently to go over. I mean, where do you want to start? Because you provided this list. It's been a while since you've been on the show. Let's dig into this. What are you thinking? What are you thinking here? Where do you want to start?
Let's start with a debate you and I had in our DMs the other day, and that's Lyndon Lajkovic and Roger McQueen.
Okay.
I know how much you love Roger McQueen, and I know how much you've praised him on the show. But the other day I'm watching Lyndon Lajkovic, and I watched him right after I watched the Roger McQueen game, and I went, what is it that's putting Roger McQueen so far ahead? And the only thing I can come up with is the 4-goal game. Yeah, he's a little bit more tactical. He's a little bit more refined in the way maybe he processes the game a little bit offensively and physically. But Lajkovic has the physical tools. He has the physical traits. He's able to get involved physically along the boards. He's a far better skater. I think his mobility is the big difference. I look at the way he's kind of shown his ability to kind of get around the ice and create plays and be more involved in everything outside of the offensive zone. And that's where I start to question Roger McQueen. And I see everyone releasing their list, and Roger McQueen is anywhere between 3 to 10. And I just don't see that unless you're putting a guy like Lyndon Lajkovic up there. And I think the reality is both of them are somewhat just outside the top 10.
Yeah, I think I personally have those two guys literally back to back. I think that with McQueen, the thing I kind of agree. I think that with McQueen, when I talk to NHL people about him, I hear the same thing. Someone just commented he's a center, and Roger McQueen is a center. But I think the thing is, teams are looking at Roger McQueen and going, what is he going to be in 5 years? Right? Like, I know with Lajkovic, you can also say the same thing, but I think Lajkovic is, the way he plays the game, I think is better suited to a more complementary role than Roger McQueen. I think Roger McQueen is a guy who wants to be the guy and wants to be that puck transporter and wants to be that offensive creator. I think he's a more physical player than Lyndon Lajkovic. I think I've seen more of that edge with Roger McQueen as well. But I think with Lyndon Lajkovic, he just is this sounds bad, but it's true to me. But like right now, today, I have Lyndon Lajkovic is a better player. Like, I'm looking right now at, I've done 2 games of both of these guys. So obviously samples are still very, very small, but literally after 2 games across the board, the results for Lajkovic are significantly better than Roger McQueen. Like, no matter which way you slice it, he's out ahead. Like, the dangerous shot attempt differentials, he's almost double Roger McQueen's. Generating offensive zone danger, like, he's generating twice as much. Lajkovic is just blowing him away. He's tripled his rates of dangerous shot attempts on his own. It's like not even really close. And with McQueen, it's like there's so many moments where you're like, okay, if he's a little bit more skilled and a little bit quicker, this could be a really dangerous play. Lajkovic, I think, just the skill level he has, I think he utilizes it really, really well to get the job done. I think the way that he sort of, the routes that he takes with the puck are evasive enough, and he can sort of make room for himself. I think on the rush, he's a great guy to have there. He manages to establish body positioning really well. He gets his scoring chances in a new number of different ways. So to me, I think it's going to be an interesting thing to look back on in a few years. I don't know how much this discussion will even really matter at the end of the day, because Roger McQueen seems locked in a top 6 in this year's group. Like now people's rankings are coming along a little further, and there is a group of 6 that's kind of pulling away from the rest right now, but he's not in that group for me. And Lakovic is pretty high on my list. And yeah, so I think that right now I probably would put Lakovic on my WHL team as they are now, but like the long-term thing, generally I'm a little spooked when people go, yeah, but trust me, we'll get there. But with McQueen, I can kind of see what they're getting at. It's the same thing as like last year with Artyom Levshinov, right? People were like, well, in 5 years, this and this and this and this will be better. And I'm going, okay, fair enough. You're drafting him second overall, right?
Yeah.
Like you are putting your eggs in a basket where the uncertainty should be spooky. But I guess if you're certain, if for whatever reason you're certain, I can't disagree, right? Like I guess so. And I see what you're talking about, but there's a lot of other options that I think are more sure things. That like if Roger McQueen were 6'2" or 6'3", are we talking about the same thing here? I don't think so, but I kind of see it. It's hard to explain. It's a weird thing, but I definitely, I will say before I throw it back to you, when I finish a game of Lyndon Lakovic, I go back and go, that was pretty good. He played well. And there was lots of really good data that came out of it. He played really well. The results are really good. Solid offensive guy. I finish a game of Roger McQueen and I'm going, I really hope NHL people are right, because I am not seeing it right now. I just do not. And I have evidence to show for it, as I always do. And you've seen it. I've sent you things where I'm like, what am I missing here? Like, what is going on? But the argument of what is he going to be in 5 years? He's the mystery box. And, it could even be a Lyndon Lakovic in there, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Who's going to say it could be a boat?
It could be a boat, right?
Honestly, sometimes he looks like a boat. Like, here's the thing about Roger McQueen, though. Like, I do see, like, the intention of what he wants to do. I'm like, oh, like, if he was able to pull that off, I would, like, that would be awesome. If he was able to do that, like, some of the little things that he does, some of the neutral zone dekes that he tries to pull off and whatnot, that end up being a loose puck that he chases down because he just happens to be the one skating forward at the time, and different things where he's managing to make the play work, even though it's something that I look at and I go, I don't know if that's going to work going forward. But the thing with him is exactly what you just said. Well, this and this will come forward. Well, everyone else around him, for the most part, is probably going to improve as well. And if they improve 80% and he improves 90%, he's still like not making up the gap that's already there. So I think that's the thing I worry about with guys like that. And you mentioned Levshinov last year, who I think you and I were both a little bit lower on than consensus. And I worry about guys like that are so dependent on, yeah, but his skating will improve, or yeah, but his pace, and he'll figure out how to handle the puck a little bit better. Like, sure, maybe, but like, if he doesn't, then you might have just invested a second overall pick or a third overall pick in a guy that plays on the bottom half of your lineup. And while the success stories of Uri Slafkovsky are all out there, there's a lot of Jake Virtanens as well. And sometimes you look at the Jake Virtanen and you go, I don't know about this, because it doesn't always work out on or off the ice for that guy.
Well, we don't need to talk about that. But we could talk about something else, maybe. But I do agree. I think with Roger McQueen, I think the bigger thing with him, and I don't want to talk about him all day because there's better things to talk about. But like, there's a je ne sais quoi when I watch him, where it's like, I feel like I've said this before, but I feel like he's been the guy his whole life. Like, he's big and lanky, but he's aggressive-ish when he wants to be. When the game comes to him, he can be dangerous, but there isn't a whole lot of that, like, really taking control of a shift when he's on the ice. He's kind of floating around, waiting around for the puck to sort of come to him. He is a little bit of that, I'm going to go get it with my physical play kind of guy, and I think there's been more of that over the course of the last calendar year, but I still just kind of go, he's a guy where I feel like you really need to coach him and motivate him. And I feel like the NHL might be a pretty decent lesson of like, yeah, you're big. Yeah, you've got skill. There's all of these things, but it's a totally different universe, right? Even the WHL at times with him. I mean, his results in my books, his results are not good. Like just flat out, the results aren't good. So something's not right. And again, it's like you're talking about a top 2, top 3, top 5 guy. I don't know. I just don't see it. I still have him in my top 15 because again, the what if is nice. But
Same.
Anywho, where to next? That was a spirited discussion. Where to next? I can only imagine what you have in store.
Let's talk about a couple of our favorite little Swedes who were either low or unranked on the big recent list that came out in Arvid Drotten and Eric Nilsson.
Yes.
Two guys who, when they played together, magic happens. Arvid Drott's so fun. I love him. He's a guy that I think is nearly the perfect complementary player for what you want on a scoring winger. I love the way he's able to kind of just blaze up the ice and make things happen. And Eric Nielsen's that smart tactical guy that can just drive the play and make those things happen with a guy like Arvid Drott. When they're together, it kind of is the perfect kind of chemistry and the perfect match stylistically. So I know you like both of them. I figured I'd give you a little bit of a platform to talk about some of your boys.
Yeah, I mean, I love both of these guys. I think that, I mean, Eric Nilsson being a C on Central Scouting, and I believe Drott was a C as well.
Yep.
I think is nuts. I think that that's just craziness. I mean, when I look at Arvid Drott, I see a guy who just plays such a good scoring role. Like he's faster than he was last year. Again, we're talking about another young player for this draft. He's a mid-August birthday. He's around a point a game. He doesn't just shoot the puck really hard. You might look at his goal totals and go, wow, he must be a really good shooter, but that's not really it. Like he's more of a, I'll go to the net if I have to. I'll find space and be a tap in option. I'll be this, I can do this and I can tip it. I can blah, blah, blah. And a guy like Eric Nilsson, who to me, like, I love field generals, right? Like in the NHL draft, I love guys who elevate everyone else. That's the key thing that I'm always looking for, right? They make life easier for everyone else. Guys who maybe take the foot off the gas pedal, guys who will step up and fill that space, right? And Eric Nilsson is that. Like he's just a field general. He sees the ice so well. He makes plays that are usually the most correct thing to do. He's got a physical edge to him that I just think is only beginning to sort of develop. He's quicker than I remember him last year. There have been so many times this season watching Arvid Drott or him or Theo Stixelius or any of these Djurgården guys. And I keep forgetting that Eric Nilsson wears 3, like the number 3, which I always associate with defensemen.
Yeah.
So when I'm watching this team, I'm going, who is that guy? Who is number 3? I watched a game, I think it was Arvid Drott, where number 3 came along and hit a guy into the bench. And I went, well, who was that? That was cool. Like he didn't do it slowly or with a whole lot of strength, but he just goes and did that. And I looked it up and I went, oh, duh, it's Eric Nilsson. Like I should have known that, but I wasn't expecting it to be him. So there's so many things with his game where I'm going, I leave him in Sweden for 3 or 4 years. And I think there's a ton of upside to work with here, especially if his pace of his game and the speed that he has can improve from here. I've just been really impressed with both of these players, especially if they end up like 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks. Like you don't have to take long to convince me that those guys are decent bets in that range.
Yeah, that's my thing with both of them is I look at them and I'm like, okay, they're going to go way later than what I have them on my list. So like, what kind of value are you going to get with a guy like this? And Eric Nilsson, who, like you said, is just such a tactical player. He understands how to play the game of chess and he does it really, really well. He understands how to kind of pick his opponents apart and attack what they're giving him. Like he sees the weakness and he strikes. He's not necessarily going out there and dictating play in the way that a truly elite player would, but he sees the guy, he sees a defenseman fade to the inside and he's going to cut to the outside and make a pass to the inside. He sees a guy try to close him off on the boards and he has the ability to cut to the inside and then work off of that. And there's a lot to like about him. And like you said, Drott is just such a really solid complementary guy, a guy that works so well with a guy like Nielsen. And you mentioned all the Garden guys, and I'm sure we'll get to him down the list. I think I just saw someone post a question about him, but Anton Frundell has not looked necessarily as dangerous as those two. So when you're seeing them on the same ice surface in the same game against the same quality of competition, basically, and you're noticing the other two guys a little bit more, it's hard not to kind of move them up your list and really appreciate a guy like both Drott and Nielsen.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair. I want to throw to you a guy that you won't shut the hell up about. I mean, I do like this player a lot myself. I'm a big fan. He's really high on my board. But Carter Bear with the Everett Silvertips. I know that Tony Ferrari loves some Bear, and feel free to take it away, because I know what I like in him, but he doesn't seem, he's a B rating on the CSS list, which I think is silly. But go nuts. What's the deal on Carter Bear?
Now, I'll start with the negative. He is old for the draft class. He's a November birthday. He's on the older end. We just talked about some of the younger guys. He is older. But man, does this kid ever just play the game of hockey.
Hell yeah.
We have an acronym, PTFG. You can figure out what the F stands for, and man, this kid does it. So as we'll get to later, I sat down with Landon DuPont, broke down his game a bunch, and through watching him, I saw so much Carter Bear. He's always on the ice with Landon DuPont. He was always kind of one of the benefactors of having DuPont on the ice with him, and DuPont was a benefactor of having Carter Bear on the ice with him. The pace that he plays with, kind of the relentlessness offensively. This kid is always looking to create, always looking to attack. And we had a discussion in our group chat the other day about downhill players and what does that exactly mean? And my thing has always been a guy that attacks, whether he's high in the zone, low in the zone, from the outside, from the high slot, a guy that attacks down in towards the net, wherever he is. I think of him as a running back that kind of in the NFL that sees the hole, hits it, and attacks it hard. In the way I see Carter Bear's offensive game is he does that. He's constantly going to the dangerous areas. He's constantly using not only his shot, but his speed and his ability to kind of draw defenders with his speed and his skating and mobility, and then make a pass against the grain. There are all these little things that he's able to do. I love Carter Bear. He's much higher on my list than anything else I've seen publicly. He's currently, I think, let me double check real quick. He is currently number 8, which is very, very high.
I can't judge. He's 10 on mine right now.
Yeah,
can't be too.
And he's in a tier with a few guys I really like, in Jackson Smith and a few others. So I love Carter Bear. I think he's going to be one of those guys that just jump up boards in the second half of the season. And yeah, like you said, he's B on Central Scouting. You saw, I think Wheeler's ranking had him in the mid-second round today. Bear's a guy I love, and he's going to be kind of a guy I ride with all season.
Yeah, I mean,
quickly interrupt.
Yeah,
the clip that I have ready to preview on Landon DuPont, which we'll get to in a little bit. It's a Carter Bear goal, just for context. And one of the other, like in the 5 game tape clips that we have in the episode, 2 of them. So we have the goal, which is the first clip. And then I think the last one, or closer to the last one, in the actual video, is Carter Bear with a ridiculous assist. I think it was the third play, maybe, but still, he made a ridiculous assist with Landon DuPont, and they fed somebody else. I forget who scored it, but he looked pretty good in those little tidbits I saw.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Carter Bear that I love, and I think might go under noticed, I guess you could say, by people, is that I don't think he really, I mean, I might eat my words when I watch him again in a couple of days, but he doesn't really jump out at you a whole lot when he's on the ice, but he just goes, everything goes his way. He gets body positioning on guys. It's all very subtle and always very positive. He gets again, this is a guy who's almost a goal per game, right? If you can get a WHL guy who's a goal per game and not small and has a bit of a physical edge to him, that's a second round pick to people. I think that's not going to last very long. He's on pace for 115 points this year on a really good team in Everett. Yes, he's playing with guys like Landon DuPont, but he's a guy who can make everything happen out there on the ice. I've loved him. All the data on him is basically just excellent. And yeah, he's been a guy that I've definitely really loved. And if he slips at all, I mean, you have him at 8, I've got him at 10. Doesn't take long for me to go, yeah, let's go for that guy, because I think there's a really impressive potential NHLer there one day.
Yeah, he's second in WHL scoring right now, right up tied for second in goals. And the only player above him in total scoring is Gavin McKenna, the next Connor Bedard in everyone's eyes. So
Right.
You know what? I think Carter Bear is doing okay.
Yes, he's doing just fine. I guess we can stick out west as well. I'm curious about the two smaller guys that you threw on your list here, and Cole Reshny and Cam Schmidt. I know my thoughts on those two. Those guys are back to back here on the notes you've put together. Where do you come down on those guys? Because I know you take 10 evaluators and put them against a wall and tell them to tell you what they think about these guys. I feel like you'll get maybe like 6 different opinions. So where do you come down on those two?
They're really interesting players because, like you said, they're both a little bit smaller guys, but they play very different styles of game, in my opinion. I think with Cole Reshny, you have this really smart playmaker. The biggest question I have about him is sometimes the skill is fantastic. He is perfectly mobile. He understands how to make plays, but he is so afraid of physicality sometimes that I look at him and I go, as much as I want you to work in the next league, in the next level, I don't know if you will. Like I've watched him so many times, like especially early in the season this year when I'm kind of going back to last year's tape and getting a base on all these guys. I watched him so many times go up to a board battle and just stay 5 feet outside of it and just hope the puck kind of comes to him. And he does that still this year a little bit, but he's making progress. In the last game I watched him a couple days ago, he was battling for position in front of the net, which is something I don't think I've ever really seen him do. He's not a physical player, but he seems to have a little bit more drive this year, a little bit more willingness to engage physically. I think the skill has never been a question. The mobility is perfectly fine. I think his creativity as a playmaker is really good. I really like what Cole Reshny brings to the ice. I just need to see him continue to be surface level physical. I'm not out here ever going to be like, I want a guy that's throwing big checks. Oftentimes that's taking them out of position. It's not really useful, but functional physicality, the things you have to do at the NHL level to be successful, whether it's going into a board battle and just leveraging your size, getting under a defender and using your feet and stick to get the puck free, or going into a board battle and just at the last second jumping in front of the guy as in the puck race. There's so many of these little things that I think a guy like Cole Reshny didn't do before that you're starting to see him do a little bit now. And I think that's where I want to see his game go. And as for Cameron Schmidt, this is a kid that plays with his foot down on the gas a million miles a minute. Like, he does not take his foot off the gas. I was watching a bunch of tape of him today, actually, and there's so many times I'm just like, yeah, you scored the goal, but you also flew into the boards, or like you accidentally body checked the referee after an assist. Like, you're just going so fast all the time. And I get it. He's a smaller guy. He has to leverage the skills that he has. And he certainly does that. So certainly tenacious, not afraid physically, which is, I think, the biggest difference. But man, Cameron Schmidt uses his speed, uses his tenacity, really kind of gets in there involved in the offensive zone, always around the slot, not always establishing position with his size. He's oftentimes creeping into the backside or sneaking in front of a defender, just with a subtle little move right at the right time. We talk about the modern day game, screening a goalie isn't necessarily staying in front of him and just taking up space. It's the flyby at the right time. It's kind of screening his eyes right as the shot's released. And those are the little things that I think Cameron Schmidt's done a lot better with. And I think he's a really fun player to watch. He's exciting to watch. He's got a great shot. He shoots from every hand position you could think of. I saw him score a really nice goal today when he just caught a puck behind his feet and simply just whipped it and it went short side shelf, and it was just like, okay, like I don't know how that happened even, because like you were not in position to make that happen.
Mhm.
Uh, a lot there to like. I really like both these guys. I have them both inside of my top 20. Um, but yeah, they're kind of in that same range of like 15 to 20 right now.
Yeah, again, similar to McQueen and Lakovic, these guys are basically back to back for me. Actually, my list currently is McQueen, Lakovic, Reshny, Frundell, Schmidt. So that works out funnily. But I love Cole Reshny. I wrote, if you're not a scouching.com or .ca subscriber, you get exclusive blog posts, and I put one out today, just talking about some guys I've taken a look at over the last little week with some insights that come from the work that I do. And Cole Reshny, I think I started out his blurb by just saying, like, I want nothing but the best for that guy. Like, he plays a style of play where you love him. Like, he just gets it. Like, if you study the fine details of the game, and you focus on possession, and you focus on vision, and guys who really seem to basically see the game as if they were like in an outer body experience, right? Like they're hovering over the ice and they just see how things are going. I think with Cole Reshny, I'm a little more bullish on the sort of physical side of things. Maybe it's just the sample I've got of him so far this year, but this is a guy who I've seen a couple of rushes of him where you've got guys all over him, and he finds a way to make a play through all of that. He finds a way to get something on net, stay with the flow of play, fetch the rebound in some way, and make something happen. He's just driven so many good offensive zone results in the games that I've done of him, that I kind of go, you know what? Like, he's not an elite skater. He's not elite with his quickness or anything, and that probably will be an issue to work through over the years. But I mean, I'm not gonna count out a player like that. You know what I mean? Like a guy who plays like that with his head on the right way, with the right motivation and patience, and one step at a time. I mean, especially if he's a guy that kind of slips a little bit because of the issues that are there, I think he could be great. Cameron Schmidt, it's been a little while since I saw him, but it's almost like a completely different appreciation level where it's just like he's just a riot to watch. Like he's a buzzsaw, electric, shoot first, ask questions later guy who I do think has developed a bit more of a playmaking streak than prior years. I mean, he has 9 assists in 15 games, which is nothing to shake your stick at. Like, that's not nothing. So there's that. It's just that he has 17 goals this season already, which is silly. That's just silly at this point. And I'm honestly still not sure what to think of Cameron Schmidt. Again, I've heard all kinds of things about him. I mean, he's a guy, he got a B rating from Central Scouting, and I've been told that there's a pretty decent chance he's a early second round pick. But to me, I look at that and I go, I don't know. I would probably take the chance if there is a chance to take on a guy like that in that range. Like, I think he does have some issues, and there's some maturing to go through on the ice for him, especially as being sort of a part of a unit on a roster. But I mean, even as a power play threat, right? Like, even as a guy, you can just say, I'm going to put you out there when we have the man advantage, and you can play on our second or third line as sort of a trigger man. I think there's value there for him. And I think he does have the intensity level that you need out of a guy like him, where you're going, yeah, you know what? If he does play more of an energetic role in the NHL, but we give him that power play time and we make him a shooting threat, then yeah, I think there could be something there with that guy.
Yeah, they're both really interesting players. And you mentioned where you had them on your list, and on mine it goes Reshny, Murtka, Schmidt, Lykovic, Roger McQueen. So it's basically just flipped version of what you have,
Right.
with a different guy in the middle. But yeah, they're kind of all in that same range. And the more I watch Schmidt today, I may or may not be preparing for something with him. And there's just that you mentioned the buzzsaw. I talked about the foot on the gas 100% of the time. It's fun to watch players like that. And I know there's been a lot of comparisons to Logan Stankoven, and while I think everyone's always chasing the next guy that they like, right? Whether it's, this guy's the next Moritz Seider or this guy's the next Logan Stankoven. I think we all need to temper expectations on that, but I do think Schmidt's a pretty good player.
I see Nick Robertson there. Like, AJ's a Leaf guy. I see Nick Robertson there.
You said my name.
Right. Like if like Nick Robertson was a second round draft pick, and I remember like I spoke to someone with Toronto at the time, and I was like, "What's the deal with that? Why was he available so late?" Because I had him in the 20s on my list, and he's going, "We think he's just going to get injured all the time." Like that's the concern. Is NHL teams looked at him and said, just by virtue of how he plays, he's going to get hurt probably.
They weren't
And
wrong.
they weren't wrong, right? They weren't wrong, but he's still a really good hockey player, and he has the energy where you're like, if he's on your third line, like I'm more than happy to play him on my third line and give him power play time. And I see a very similar sort of trajectory there. Schmidt's just scoring a lot more way faster than Robertson did, but I do think
You've
they're kind
sold
of
me. You've sold me.
right. Yeah. I mean, he's an AJ guy. AJ loves his pedal to the metal guys.
Oh yeah.
And he's definitely one of those.
All gas, no brakes. That's how I
Exactly.
operate.
All gas, no
So
brakes.
those are the kind of guys I like.
Is there anyone else on this list you wanted to go over? Because there's one name on here that I love that you brought up, and a name that nobody is talking about, but I love. But I'm curious if you wanted to take it some direction before we get to game tape and taking questions.
I wonder who that is. I'll let you. Who is it that you're talking about?
I love the Zeb Lindgren introduction there. I think Zeb Lindgren is so interesting. I have only seen him play men's league hockey this year in the Champions League, and he has looked fine in a good way. Like he's rangy, he's lanky, he keeps his game simple but really effective. But then once in a while, you see him do a thing, and you're going, "Oh, okay. Like if you could do that more, that would be great." But I don't really care if he doesn't, because just patrolling the blue line and playing defensive hockey and just being involved in the game and not looking out of place on a men's league team, I'm interested in that guy. And again, a C rating from Central Scouting. He's in my first round. But that's the one that stuck out to me. But I'll throw it back to you. But I love the Zeb. I'm on the Zeb train this year.
No, I love Zeb. You talked about him, and I went and looked at him. I watched a men's game, and I've watched two men's games, and I've watched a J20 game actually yesterday is when I watched the J20 game, and everything that you saw in the men's game, he does at the J20 level at a higher level. There's almost a nonchalantness about the way he plays at the J20 level, where you're like, does this guy give a crap? Like, does he care? Because he's just like wheeling around defensively in transition. Like there were so many times where he just simply took the puck. Like it wasn't like he threw a hit. It wasn't like he like swatted at the puck and jumped on the loose puck. No, like there was a couple times where he simply just like, as they skated in, they tried to make a deke, and he just like hooked it off their stick, calmly made a pass to his D partner to open himself up, and just broke the puck out. Like there were so many like little plays like that where I'm like, oh, like it's almost like when you're playing with your little brothers, and you're like,
have any brothers, so
well, we'll get some siblings. Tell your parents to get busy.
that's sexist. I have a sister, please. That's still a sibling.
Okay, then play with her.
Fine.
Gosh,
I'll get on the phone.
When you play with your siblings and they're younger than you, and you are able to dominate them until they get older and bigger, and you're just kind of toying with them. That's kind of what it looked like at the J20 level. And there was a few times where I'm like, okay, like you have this lane, like instead of making the pass, like skate with it a little bit. Like I wanted to see more from him. I think you and I have talked privately about there's all this potential for him to do more, and sometimes he just chooses to make the right play rather than push and try to make an exciting play. And I think that's what I wanted to see from him at the J20 level that I didn't quite see. But man, like the potential there, I look at him and I go, you could be something if you like pushed a little harder, especially when you have those opportunities against the junior level competition.
Right. But even if he doesn't, though, you know,
he's still super effective.
Still really effective. Like that's the thing about him is, he just goes out and gets the job done and does it. Just, it's like, again, it's that thing where you kind of sit back and you're like, well, that was not the wrong idea. Well, that worked. Well, that worked. You passed the puck and didn't cough it up. You did that. And at the end of the game, you're like, I mean, that was good. It was all good. But in a sense, that's valuable, right? Like that's a thing. That's a thing you can walk back or look back on and value. Anything else before we move on? Or are there any names here you really wanted to go over? I mean, there's still quite a few, but we're getting into the back half of the show. So I don't know what you want to do. You're in the driver's seat tonight, son.
You guys can do whatever
No,
you want, honestly.
I think AJ has things he wants to get to, and then we can get to some questions from the
All right.
lovely viewers, because I've seen
Yeah.
a few of them and they're fun.
We can always come back to if we get through all this relatively quickly. But anyway, I'm going to throw it over to the two of you because you guys have been hard at work putting together our first couple episodes of Game Tape. The first of which will be available to Scouching subscribers tomorrow. Okay, so
It'll be
tomorrow they'll
at
get
12 p.m. Eastern time.
Got
That's
it.
when I'm going to put
and
it
then,
on.
Yeah, so it'll be
Around
available through the Discord server as well if you're a subscriber. There will be a page on the site for exclusive videos that I'll stick the link to in there as well, so you can watch it there if you choose. But you have to have an account, and then it'll be public down the road. I think 3 days, something like that, by the end of the week.
Friday. It's going to be Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern.
Friday. Got it. So Friday at 12, it'll be public, but until then, it'll be exclusive to Scouching.ca subscribers. So you can check that out and get subscribed. But guys, I love what you guys are doing, but take it away. We got some stuff to share with the people, but yeah, I mean, I'm just impressed. So wax poetic about your own work. Pat yourselves on the back.
You go right ahead. You start it off.
Well, I've always had this vision for Game Tape, the series I've been doing for a few years now, where I sit down with a player and we break down plays together and kind of deconstruct their game on film in front of an audience with the player. I want to know what they're thinking, why they're making decisions, what they saw on a goal, or how they saw the lane to get this pass through, various things, because it's really important, I think, in the process of evaluating these guys to get their thoughts. And IQ is such a hard thing to manage and evaluate, that going right to the source seemed like the best option. So I've been doing this series for a few years now, and through some ups and downs, their production value has not always been the greatest because, one, I am not an editor, I'm not a producer, I'm none of those things. And two, some of the outlets that I've been with have not always helped me in the best way that they were supposed to. So this year, teaming up with AJ, teaming up with Will, and Ray, who's in the chat somewhere, I'm sure.
Yes.
The production value on this thing has gone through the roof. The product itself, I'm so much more impressed with. It reminds me of something from that Sportsnet or TSN or Amazon Prime would show on an internet.
Pat myself on the back. Oh, it's not like I wasn't trained to be working at one of those places. Oh yeah.
So before I even say anything, thank you, AJ. Thank you, Ray. I know AJ needs the ego boost.
Oh, yes. I do. I do. You have no idea.
Back rub later. But no, the additional editing production that those two have put on these videos have made something I've been pretty proud of the last few years. Something now I look at and I go, oh, I'm in that? Like, why? Like,
because you have access to the players, Tony. That's the only reason.
Yeah, we're using you, man.
Yeah, it's okay. Use me, abuse me, whatever you got to do. But honestly, the first one's Landon DuPont, an exceptional status kid who's absolutely torn up the WHL to start the year. The second one, which will be out, I think, November 15th, the Tuesday before that for subscribers, is Michael Misa. I'm filming a third one tomorrow with AJ. It's a player we talked about quite a bit today. I just don't want to spoil anything just in case something happens and I can't do the interview with him.
And he may or may not have dropped the hint earlier.
Yes. But the players we're getting are really good players. They're exciting players. I've loved what's come out of this. So AJ, what would you like to say about this process that you've been obsessing over for the last 3 weeks?
God damn it, I'm so excited. That's it. That's it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited that Tony let me do this, because for a long time, I've thought about this, because I was taught kind of how to do feature pieces and interviews in school. I was just like, hey, I think Tony's show could be really, really, really awesome, like elevated, because it was cool before. But I always thought, I think I can make it better. And Tony gave me that chance, and I'm so glad he did, because now I kind of got the keys. I'm the one who gets to sift through all this footage, put it together, and package it in a way that I think is really cool, and hopefully in a way that you all think is really cool, because that's what this is for. I think what I tried to bring to this that wasn't necessarily there before is, how do we tell a story with this? How do we show who these players are? How do we make you care about them? Because at the end of the day, I love this sport. God damn it, I love this sport. And I want people to care about the people that are getting drafted. So I'm going to just hit fade in my OBS window in a second and give you a taste of just what's to come. So here it is. This is one of the clips that Landon DuPont broke down of his own game in game tape. So here it is, and enjoy, ladies and gentlemen.
The play starts in the defensive end. You make a really good play to Carter Bear for your first point. What was this experience like? Just making that really good defensive play and then that great pass up ice.
I saw the guy rim puck. It was kind of bouncing on him a bit, so I tried to just kill it as quick as I could and then try to get my feet moving and then got my head up and saw Carter, my billet brother, and just slung a pass, and it was a good pickup by him, and then obviously a great finish by him as well. That was pretty special. That was a really nice move for him, and obviously my first WHL point, so it was pretty cool.
Now, a lot of times, especially younger players, more inexperienced guys, the defensive side of the puck is a big area to work on, and you make a great play here that starts in the defensive zone, make the pass up ice. How important is it for you to be that defensive presence as you work towards becoming a more well-rounded hockey player?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Like, obviously as a D-man, it's defense first, and you can't be a good D-man if you can't defend. So just trying to kill plays as quick as possible. And obviously if you play good defense, that leads to good offense.
Well, wasn't that fun? Cool stuff. I mean, congrats, gentlemen. It looks great. So far, so good. And I mean, I don't know. I guess you could say I'm the boss man, and the boss man approves. So well done. Congrats. And I can't wait for the rest of them. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, man. And there's a lot more to that than that. There's a lot of graphics that went into it on like the actual interview side. You're going to get to see some photos of these guys when they're younger and how they managed to get to where they are, the journey they took. In Landon's case, we got to take a look at him because his dad played in Germany. And so he played with Eisbären Berlin, I believe is the team name. So he played for that team for a while in junior. And there's just a really great story there that now I get to tie together with Tony's great interview and their great breakdown of the game tape. So I think it's a really great series. I'm expecting Jeff Merrick to be in my DMs at some point. I'm just kidding. I don't even have my own private stuff. But I really think this is going to do super well, and I'm excited for all of you guys to see it and enjoy it with us.
The part I loved about it was you showed the clip, you showed him breaking some stuff down, but the little stuff that I'm excited for is the stuff that wasn't even in what you just showed. Like when you're showing the pictures of him as a kid, the production value on putting the film scroll across the screen and having multiple pictures. You talked about his dad playing over in Germany, and there's this really fun picture of him going up against Moritz Seider when Moritz Seider was like 16. There's so many little things throughout this video now that I think the production value is just through the roof. And again, I thank Ray. The work you guys have done has really not only taken it off my shoulders, but it's improved the product a millionfold.
And I spend so many goddamn hours on it. I spent 6 hours this morning from like 6:20 to 12:20 just working on the Misa one, but I don't care. It's not work to me. I love it. It's so exciting to put this together because these are the guys who are going to be the future of the league. And I feel like I shoulder some responsibility in showcasing who they are and them at their best. So it's exciting, and I really appreciate the opportunity to do it. And please watch, please. I've sunk way too much time into this for it not to do well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I think it's worth being proud of regardless, man, but it's good stuff. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the Michael Misa one and the one that comes after that and the one after that and the one after that. It's going to be good. We're going to try to make it a every 2 weeks kind of thing.
Oh, no, it's a weekly thing.
Yeah. Oh, weekly.
Yeah,
oh, right. Oh my God. I keep forgetting what day of the week it is.
Oh yeah. I'm pumping these out, boy.
Yeah, we're pumping.
And by me, I mean, I'm filming interviews and sending them to AJ.
Yeah, I'm pumping these out.
And then AJ's grinding away. Yeah. Yeah. The David Goggins approach. All right. I guess we can get into some questions unless you boys want to, talk about that show anymore. But I'm just excited. I'm ready to
I
party.
think it speaks for itself at this point, and we'll, or at least it will tomorrow for the early access subscribers. So please give us your money, and you'll get access to it. Give us your money, please.
Yeah.
Help
More
pay
money,
me.
money. We need that. We need a clip. That clip from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia of Charlie's mom asking for money from a script that Charlie wrote. Me money now, more money me a lot now needing. That's what we need. I should read that verbatim at the top of every show as our advertisement for ourselves. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into some questions. I mean, AJ, you responded to this person. I don't know if you want to cover your butt.
What
From
the whole thing
from before
about
the show started,
the whole thing
claiming
about
that the Blues are the worst team in the Central now that they've beaten the Leafs twice.
twice.
Yeah.
I'll cover my
butt.
butt. The Leafs lost to the Chicago Blackhawks twice last year too. I don't really care.
That's so sad.
They also
Chicago Blackhawks.
They also got goalied in both those games. Like, look, I'm not coming out here and saying that the Blues are the worst team in the Central anymore, okay? I've bumped them up a spot. They're not the worst. I still don't think very much of them, but they're not the worst. And as Tony was saying before the stream, the Leafs play to their competition. They beat the Winnipeg Jets, but they've lost twice to the St. Louis Blues. They're the only blemish on the Winnipeg Jets record, okay? This is what you deal with that team. But I will say, I really appreciate you calling me out because I was kind of hoping somebody would. Like, do people really care? Do people really listen to what I say? And that proves it. Somebody had to come into the stream. At least one. I don't care.
There's one.
I've done it. God damn it, I've made it. That's what
You've made it.
That's what this is. So thank you for calling me out on my dookie.
You got enough praise from me about the video. Someone needed to give you a little bit of crap.
Oh yeah. I'll eat the poo-poo sandwich. I don't care.
The editing skills go up, the hockey takes go down.
That's fine. That's fine. I don't care.
Good worker, garbage person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. So someone said, Zach says, if all goes to hell tomorrow in the United States, is Team Scouching hiring any molecular biologists? I mean, number one, congratulations to you for being a molecular biologist.
Yeah.
You are actually a molecular
that's awesome.
biologist. That's an incredible. I took molecular biology for like 3 weeks in university, and I did not think I would pass it at all. So I went, I'm out. I'm calling it a day. So the fact that you got a whole degree in that thing, congratulations. But I think regardless, molecular biologists will find a way to be perfectly okay. But no, unfortunately, I am not hiring one. Maybe one day, I don't know, but not today or tomorrow, I guess. What do we got here? Thoughts on Zach LaRue's progression? I mean, Zach LaRue is an interesting one. What?
Has he done much? Like, I've not noticed him in those games.
Well, he has played in, I don't even know what he's done so far this season.
6 games, 2 assists, I think, so far. I watched 2 of the games just because I throw hockey on when I'm not doing anything else. And he looks fine. Like, he looks like a bottom 6 guy in the NHL. The biggest thing with Zachary LaRue is, like, you talk about his progression. He's just gotten better at the things Zachary LaRue's kind of always been pretty good at. The physicality, the better skill than what you'd expect from a traditional grinder. And I think he's a fine bottom 6 guy. Does he probably get sent back to the AHL at some point this year? Yeah, I'm going to assume so. But for now, Nashville started off 0-4 and they've been winning since he's been up. So I don't know. Maybe he is maybe he's the key.
I got confused with Zach Bolduc and Zach LaRue for a second.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Zach LaRue's in Nashville.
Zachary LaRue is better than Zach Bolduc.
Oh,
yes.
Well, LaRue is an interesting one because he's a Quebec guy, and we sassed Quebec off. Well, Tony sassed Quebec off the top of the show. But it is an interesting thing because he played a style in Quebec. Well, I should say the Maritimes. He played the style of hockey where you're like, it doesn't even really matter. Like in the NHL, a guy like this is probably going to be okay in some way.
Yeah.
Like I never thought he was going to be anything more than a bottom 6 energy guy. And I mean, I just looked, he had over 4 penalty minutes a game in the playoffs last year. Like this is a guy who is a pesky bastard, and he'll get you. and that will work, right? If you're just harder, more intense than anyone else and competitive and whatever, you might not score a ton. I mean, he scored quite a bit in the AHL last year, more than a lot of other Quebec guys, but that's not his identity, I don't think, in the NHL. But as a bottom six guy, I'll admit I haven't seen anything with Nashville. I honestly didn't even know that he was in the NHL yet. Shows what I know. But you're right. They're 4-2 with him in the lineup. So maybe there's something there. I don't know.
I've always liked Zachary Leroux to an extent because he was the anti-Quebec guy in Quebec. But my favorite story about Zachary Leroux is last year, Milwaukee was playing Grand Rapids, if I'm not mistaken. Sebastian Cosa's in net for the Red Wings AHL affiliate. And Zachary Leroux's in the penalty box because, of course, he is. As he comes out of the penalty box, he gets sprung with a pass, goes in on a breakaway, scores on a nice little shot, looks at Sebastian Cosa, immediately starts berating him to the point where the referee just goes, unsportsmanlike misconduct, sends him back to the box. That's the Zachary Leroux experience.
Yeah,
hey, but he'll fit right in with Nashville. You suck. It's all your fault.
Yeah. Like, Antoine Roussel had a hell of a career doing that kind of thing. Sean Avery had a hell of a career doing that kind of thing.
I remember Sean Avery, but he was in the twilight of his career when I was coming
prime
out.
Sean Avery, man. That was...
Dude, I remember the battles with Brodeur.
Wow. The Dion Phaneuf saga was spectacular. He just... God, man. It had to be seen to be believed. I don't know how many people are old enough to remember, but it was spectacular. Thoughts on Carter Bear? Is he a top 10 talent? I mean, both of us have him in the top 10. We talked about Carter Bear already, but he's, I don't know, friggin' sick.
You saw on the Landon DuPont tape.
Yeah,
he
gross.
was sick.
Yeah,
and
he's sick.
Hopefully you'll see on Carter Bear game tape, because I think that's something that Tony plans on doing. And
yeah, that's safe to say.
Yeah. So
well, there you go.
We'll get there at some point.
Where do you think the drop-off happens in this year's draft compared to last year? That's a good question. I do think for me at least, I think the drop-off is quick and heavy. Like I think that I kind of go by vibe of like, at what point in the draft am I kind of going, yeah, like I could see this guy being a thing, whereas before that level I'm kind of going, oh my god, I love watching this guy go. Like I just love watching this guy play hockey. And for me, that kind of stops at 12 11. I kind of at 11 I kind of go, yeah, like there are question marks, or I could see this guy being complimentary and being blah blah blah. I don't know about you. Well, let me pull up my 2024 list. But Tony, for you, what about 2025? Where do you sort of come down on that?
For 2025, I'm looking and I'm like, okay, there's a drop off after 4 for me. The top 4, I think, are kind of all in one tier. I had a discussion with you and Mikhail and a few other people about, is William Eklund worth a first overall pick? Maybe not, but he's kind of at the back end of that grouping I have as the first overall guys. Martone, Misa, and Hagens round out that group. And then, like 13, I think, is probably where I'd have that. And it's right in that range where we get to those guys we talked about earlier with the Cole Reshny, the Cam Schmidt, the Lyndon Likovic, the Radim Murtka, like that group of guys. I'm like, okay, these guys could be sweet. They could be really good players, but there's things that have to happen. There's steps that need to be taken for all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my 2024 list, and I think that, oh my God, this is crazy. I think that point where I'm going, yeah, beyond this, like, they're kind of fine. I could see them being role guys, but whatever. I think that's like past 20. Like Luke Misa, Michael Hage, Konsta Helenius, Igor Chernyshov, Liam Greentree, all those guys. I'm like, yeah, I could see them being fine. Dominic Badinka, Nikita Artemonov, Stein Solberg, like, they're fine. Above 20, though, like you had guys like Trevor Connolly, Jet Luchenko, Andrew Basha, Zane Perek. I had Alphonse Frey that high. Teddy Stiga was really high on my list. Tija Ginla, like all of these guys who were really, really exciting players and I thought brought a lot of upside. This year, that list is, to me, quite a lot shorter. I think maybe you could add a guy like Carter Bear. Actually, Carter Bear is in that group for me. Maybe Lakovic. I want to put Reshny there, but I think there's too many question marks. but other than that, yeah, like it drops off real fast. I do think, though, I will say that I think that there's a pretty wide group of that like B to C level ability. There's a lot of solid in this year's group, whereas last year I feel like it kind of turned into, I don't know, I kind of like this guy and this guy, I guess, like relatively quickly. But this year I find that there's a lot of like interesting players, but it's not mind blowing. I don't know if you feel any differently.
No, like I look at my list from last year, and once you get out of that 25-ish range, there were guys like, I mean, I had Carter Yakimchuk outside there because, well, he's Carter Yakimchuk. Ottawa Senators fans are slowly learning, but they're still hyping him up. But then you have guys like Danilo Stinkov, who went undrafted, Luke Misa, who went in the 5th round, Tapai Sandinen, who went undrafted, like Noel Franzen, who I was excessively high on all year last year, went a little bit later. And then you kind of go to guys like John Mustard and Ole Josefsson, who you're like, man, like they could be cool, but they could be nothing. and yeah, I think this year's draft class is doing that earlier. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it is tricky. It's a tricky year, and I'm just A-Bing my 2024 and 2025 list, and yeah, it's not. I mean, I'm seeing names like Kieran Walton later on my list here. I've got Terrence Smith here, who I liked last year. Julius Miettinen, but I guess there are players like that this year. But those guys were my late second level type guys, and I don't know, the guys in the late second for me this year right now, like Thomas Politin, Emil Guite, Luka Radivojevic is in that range. Like, I'm not overly thrilled with these guys. Like, maybe they're role players down the line. So it'll be interesting to see how this season goes.
And just quickly, Tony did say he said William Eklund for first overall a little bit. He meant Victor.
Boo.
Yes. No, it's just for all the listeners, just in case. Boo. But I figured I'd point it out at the end here, just so we don't leave anything unturned.
Someone asked about Cullen Potter. Where do you think he's going to go? Is he a first rounder for you? I love Cullen Potter. I think the potential with him is super, super high as many players in this draft. I think that he is pretty flawed in the sense of like it's a lot of talent, it's a lot of speed, it's a lot of skill, but he can kind of put a lot on his own shoulders, and I think play a little bit too individualistic and try to do a lot himself, and it can cause losses of possession when he absolutely doesn't need to. He's trying little silly, like he's trying to do the Mitch Marner thing, but he's not Mitch Marner. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like he's trying that super, super high end stuff sometimes, and you're like, just keep it simple, man. Like you're better when you keep it simple. Give and goes. Identify space, skate into it. He's got the speed, he's got the skill, he's got the finishing ability. And he hasn't been bad this year, but definitely a player with his ups and downs. But I have him really, really high. I don't know about you, but I've really liked what I've seen and the potential if you leave him in college for a few years.
Yeah, I started the year with Cullen Potter in my top 10. He's still there, but it's kind of like you gotta prove it now. Because like I have forgiven a few things in viewings that I've watched of him, and there are moments where I'm like, he's working so hard right now, but it's because he was trying to do so much that now he has to try to recover.
Right.
And I think that's been my biggest complaint about him this year is last year at the NTDP, like I saw him do things where I'm like, okay, like you're using your teammates extremely well. You understand how to tactically move up the ice while using your speed and in using the skill that you have. Figure out how to play like you were last year now. And I think that's the biggest thing is I think he came into Arizona State and he's like, I have to be the guy or something. And I'd rather him just not try to be the only guy and utilize his teammates more. I think you see a lot of times prospects do this, and usually you see it, I think, with European guys when they go from junior to pro in their draft years. They try to do so much on their own to showcase their game, when the reality is when they finally around December get back to playing their normal game, that's when they start to excel. There's been a number of Russians over the years. We've talked about Michkov on this show a million times. And I think in his draft year, he did that. Like he was trying 100%. To do so much.
100%.
And then when he finally started utilizing the people around him to make his own life a little bit easier, that's when he started to excel. And I think that's kind of something I'm waiting to see from Cullen Potter. But the skill is there, the speed is there. Like, I like what I see. As a 5'9" forward, is the NHL going to see it that way? Probably not. And that's why I'm not going to be shocked when he's a little bit lower on people's lists, especially there's people out there that try to go for what the NHL sees and don't necessarily have original thought of their own sometimes.
Right. I think that I agree with that. I really like Cullen Potter. I think there's a lot of potential, but yeah, it's a matter of keeping an eye on him, you know, because like game 1 and game 2 for me, I was like, I see it, but I want more. I want something a little bit more reliable out of him, because some of the stuff that wasn't ideal, you're like, you just hung your team out to dry a little bit. But you know, if game 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the year, it's like more of that, then you're kind of a little more concerned. But you know, as time goes by, because I don't really remember this being much of a thing last year from him. I remember him being just maybe it's because he could kind of get away with it a little more.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, also he is an 07 playing NCAA hockey, which is pretty rare. You don't see guys that aren't late birthdays from the previous year playing in the NCAA hockey. So it's an adjustment, right? And he's coming from the under 17 team last year. He didn't, or did he play with the under 18 team last year much? I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. But anyway, big fans here though. We'll see what happens. What did you think of Max Crete for the Ice Dogs in the game you watched? Yeah, that's true. I was at Niagara yesterday afternoon. I watched them play the Sudbury Wolves. The Sudbury Wolves came to town, and it was a pretty solid game, I should say. I mean, I will say, Kevin He, man, that guy can rip. He is quicker than he was last year. He is more aggressive than he was last year. He is ramping things up, and I love it. He was the best player on the ice yesterday. Pretty sure. Like, Quentin Musty was playing, but he kind of played like a guy who simultaneously has missed quite a lot of time, and also a guy who requested a trade and didn't get one. You know, not to read too much into body language and such, but didn't seem like he was playing with a whole lot of joy. Whereas Kevin, he was just out there carving and ripping and shredding and shooting and passing and hitting. And
so Will,
it was great.
Is he him?
He might be him right now. Yeah. I mean, again, kudos to the Winnipeg Jets, man. They're I mean, I liked Kevin He last year, and if his name came up in that range, I would have said absolutely. And I know the question's not about him, but I just want to throw that out there because I thought he was excellent yesterday. And he scored the overtime winner. It was actually really funny. Before I answer the actual question, I didn't stay for the overtime. Because I went to the rink, and that's what people at the rink do. You don't watch the whole game, right? You leave early.
Which is true. We've seen it.
Right. But 3-on-3, I kind of went, I was on my way out of the arena, and in the back of my mind, I'm just like, I don't even think it's going to matter, because I feel like Kevin He is just faster and more skilled than everyone. He's just going to take the puck and have the extra space and score. I'm literally 10 paces out of the arena, walking back into town, because St. Catharines Arena, there's a bridge that leads to downtown. I was on the bridge going back. I was not 10 paces off onto the bridge. I hear the goal horn go off and the crowd go nuts. And I'm like, well, someone scored 10 seconds into the overtime. I check my phone in the car. Kevin He scored the overtime winner. And I'm like, well, that makes sense, right? Like, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't see it because, you know, boots on the ground.
You saw the future. That's why.
Yes, I saw the future. But anyway, Max Crete, he did score a goal in that game. I didn't really jot his name down a whole lot. I'm not sure if it's just that he didn't play a ton, but he had 7 shots on goal that game. But Niagara was kind of peppering the net all night. I did note him as a player to check back in on, and I didn't realize he was an 08 until I got home, which is impressive. He was impressive for an 08 for sure. There was a couple of good ones. Sudbury had a good one. Blanca, I think his name was, not the Street Fighter guy. Different guy. Yeah, no, not Blanca from Street Fighter. A 15-year-old version of him. Luca Blonda. Yeah, that's the one. Luca Blonda was pretty good too. But yeah, Max Crete was pretty good. I mean, I don't think anybody really like jumped off the ice to me that game except Kevin He, and I would say Ethan Zada had some good moments, but again, nothing really like spectacular. But it was a fun game. Okay, opinions on Tomasz Popozol. I haven't seen him or seen him pretty high for some people, and I don't see it. I have him as the last name on my list. That's where he is for me. I think he's fine. but I don't think I could see him not being on my final list at the end of the year, but I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, the last game I did of him was so bad. It was maybe the worst game I've watched of any singular prospect this year, and I moved him right down my list as well. Like he was trying to get involved at times, but like there was one play where he was in a race for a loose puck, and the defender had a step on him, but he was 10 feet away from the puck, and Pobazal was clearly going to win the race because he was just moving faster, and he just eased up, like let the defender get it, and then didn't try to like check or battle for it at all, just kind of peeled off. There's a bunch of moments like that where I'm just like, this game was so like I had to move him down. I've seen him be better. I've seen him have moments where I really like him.
Yep.
But yeah, the last game I watched, and even the game before that was not great, but the last game I watched was maybe the worst game I've watched of any player this year.
Yeah, the game I've seen him a couple of times this year, and he's never really blown me away. And I always remembered him being like more skilled and creative and agile than what I'm seeing at the pro level in Slovakia. I think though too, like I'm looking at my data on the game I did of him, and I've got to do another one in the near future, but he didn't really do anything. Like he wasn't really touching the puck, but then I remember in the third period or in the back half of the second period, just off the puck, he went to the net and got like 3 or 4 decent scoring chances from scoring areas. And I'm like, okay, well, in the data, that's going to look pretty good, but I still am really not sure what's going on here. He was an interesting one. I mean, I feel like if he were a year younger, I might be a lot more interested, but I don't know. It's also been like, this guy's impressed me more. This guy's impressed me more. This guy's impressed me more. Next thing you know, he's in my 80s right now. So we'll see where the rest of the season goes, but yeah, hasn't been spectacular. People are already crapping on this upcoming draft. What are your general views on this draft? We kind of went over that. I mean, we're guilty of crapping on this draft already. Again, I don't like saying the drafts are bad, but the talent level and the excitement level around a bunch of these guys, it just compared to previous years is not on the same level. I don't think. I think there's a lot of interesting players, maybe some role players, and again, they're 17 years old. Like who knows what's going to happen in 5 years. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of these guys, it's like, I don't know. I could see role players. Maybe if things go a certain way, I could see them being a thing. And then there's Jamiro Reber. I'm half joking, but I don't know. Do you have any more thoughts on this or no? Like, because
no, I think we've been spoiled since like 2015. Really, we have the odd draft class of 2017, the 2021 group where we're like, but then you look back and there's good players that came out of those draft classes.
Right.
Like, who's going to be the Elias Pettersson this year? Who's going to be the Cale Makar?
Yeah.
Right. Like, we probably don't get Cale Makar or even maybe Elias Pettersson, but like we're going to get someone that plays well above what we all expected. And that's kind of the way to look at this draft class, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think that the top end is really good. Like Hagens, Misa, Martone, Schaefer, Eklund, even like a Jackson Smith doesn't come along very often. I have Smith really high, but I do know that there's issues in his game. But I mean, a guy that has his ability and the package of tools he's got, you don't find those very often. But yeah, it's But other than that, it kind of drops off quick. Has there been any players in the 2024 draft that you wish played in a different junior league or the NCAA?
2024 class?
2024.
I want everyone to play in the NCAA.
Yeah, everyone should play college hockey. Yeah. I mean, more people will be, it's happening. Team players are leaving the USHL at a pretty surprising rate, which is pretty crazy to me. Like mid-season, they're just like, bye, and going
Teams
back
are trying to leave the USHL mid-season.
Yeah. I don't know. In the 2024 draft, maybe like a Zane Perek in the NCAA would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Just to see how that goes. Beckett Seneca in the NCAA would be curious. I don't know. I mean, having Ivan Demidov in the KHL all year would have been interesting, but I don't know if that would have gone super well. I don't know. Do you have any answers? I don't really know, because a lot of the guys
Yeah.
also were in the NCAA that I'm like, yeah, like it was good to
Yeah,
see.
exactly. Like Caden Lindstrom fully healthy for the year would have been
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Igor Chernyshov, like come to North
right.
America, see what he does.
Yep.
But yeah, like it's a lot of the guys that I think were already in the NCAA. We're already kind of most players were where they should have probably been last year. Like you said, may move Demidov up to the KHL, but yeah,
Yep.
nitpicking at that point.
Artemonov in the OHL, that would be fun. Elite KHL or Nikita Artemonov.
Yeah, the
Sam
problem is that
Gilligan.
having Sam so close would be an issue.
That's true. Yeah, that'd be problematic. Are we still on the Melvin Novotny hype train, hoping he's a mid-late round pick for the Canucks since they're infatuated with Swedes? I like Melvin Novotny. I really do. I think that he's a player who, at his best, you see some really, really high-end stuff, but it just doesn't come out very often. Really skilled, really smooth skater, just brings a lot of the fun factor to the game, I guess you could say. But in terms of a well-rounded style of play, I just haven't really seen that out of him. But I mean, as a guy who could be in a second or third round pick, like I'm more than happy taking a chance on him.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. Is like I have him. Where do I have him? I have him just inside the first round, but at the end of the day, he's probably going to go in the second round. And I think you're getting a pretty good player there. Like I like a lot of what he did. He showed well internationally as well. So I don't know. I like Melvin Novotny. I think I have him a little bit higher than probably where he's going to go, but I think I'm on the hype train still.
Yeah, he's a player I think that a good coach could get a lot out of him, where it's like, you have a lot of potential. There's a lot of upside there. I have him back to back with Tinas Koblar, who I love. I love that guy. He's a good boy. But we were asked about Melvin Novotny.
So
what's
Will
going on?
Derails the conversation and goes somewhere else, like he did with Kevin He instead of Max Crete.
Exactly.
Because he is him.
He is him. Also, what's going on with Sawyer Minea? Why is he so slay? I don't know the answer to that question. I've seen the Seattle Thunderbirds a few times. I mean, I think he's just a really smart, well-rounded WHL defenseman who is scoring points because someone has to on Seattle. But he's been good. Like, he's been good in the WHL this season, but I don't know if you have anything more to expand on. He's just, whenever I've seen him on the ice, I'm like, he skates well enough. He has enough skill. He's got enough vision on the ice to make stuff happen. The kind of like a Zeb Lindgren of the WHL, you know what I mean? So he does the thing. He's just getting points.
Yeah, I think my only comment would be, Slay Queen. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then the response to this was never say so slay again. I disagree. I think that's going to be, it's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. So deal with it. All the way from Britain, Mr. J Milk. Thoughts on Will Sharp, or is it just me, or is he getting overhyped or overlooked? Sorry. I just saw Will Sharp not too long ago. I do think that there's a good player there, dynamic offensive defenseman, but I do think that the NHL is going to be a big test for a guy like that.
Yeah.
And I think there's got to be some lessons for him to work through, and intensity level kind of has to get ramped up. Off puck defense, I think, is also a bit of an issue with him. Tying up sticks, establishing body positioning, all that stuff isn't quite there right now. But boy, when he has the puck on his stick, he can make a play and be pretty impressive. But I don't know if you've seen much of him this season or not.
Yeah, no, I just watched him not too long ago. Actually, I think a lot of what you said was true. Like just engagement when he's in his own zone, like committing to doing something sometimes is the biggest issue for him defensively. But like you said, with the puck is fun. But there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of fun junior hockey defensemen. Like you have to find a way to establish yourself outside of being fun with the puck on your stick, because there's a lot more to the game than just being fun with the puck on your stick.
Yeah, he's one I'll check in on again a few times before the end of the year, but I didn't leave my experience watching him going like, oh my God, this is a guy that I definitely want to keep an eye on, because there's also been guys like, again, we call it the Jordan Millette continuum or whatever, but it's like, when are you going to draft a guy like Will Sharp when there are guys that play outside of the WHL or whatever, like outside the norm, where you're like, I'd rather have this guy, and it doesn't matter where in the draft. Like I look at a Rocky Longvart in Sweden and I'm like, well, there's a guy who is more physical. He's more mobile. He's creative. He's producing decently well, but to me, I just go, yeah, he's not even ranked on Central Scouting. So in the 7th round, am I taking him or a Will Sharp? Maybe I'll eat those words long-term, but I see more projectable stuff out of the Swede, who nobody's really paying much attention to, rather than the WHL guy that's getting every look you can imagine.
Yeah.
David Sod of Dauber Prospects is here. Shout out David Sod, good dude. We met in Vegas. We hung out for a few rounds of the NHL draft in Vegas at the Sphere, so that was fun. Philip Ekberg is such a good second rounder. He might be a first rounder. I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, I've seen Philip Ekberg a few times this year. He's in my second round now. So is Ivan Ryabkin, honestly. Two guys that I just haven't really seen it with on the level of other guys in this draft. But have you seen much of Ekberg? What's your read on him? I know he's been more productive recently, but
yeah.
I
think every time I've watched Ekberg, I go, you're almost doing stuff. Like, you're trying to do stuff sometimes, but like every time I watch him, I just go, okay, like now you got to move down 3 spots. Now you got to move down 5 spots. And he just kind of keeps moving down the list. And now he's, I think, the first player out of my first round at the moment. And it's like, I had him high. I had him really high coming into the year. I had high expectations. The move to Ottawa I thought was going to be good for him. And there are flashes of the player I thought was going to be there, but it's not really putting it together. He's not really putting it together the way I thought he would. So there are moments where he's taking the foot off the gas and the team is trying to push the pace. There are moments where he's flying up the ice and the pass isn't there. Like, it's just not really working for him right now.
Yeah. I agree. I think we'll see. The data that came out of the first game I did of him was not good, except for the off puck stuff, which was kind of curious to me. But yeah, someone asked about Nathan Beam, who I know you are. You were not, again, nonstop with me about him. But the person says they like them, but they're worried about the pace of play. And then also shouts out Emmett Finney, who has been quite good this year. But Nathan Beam, give me the lowdown on your view on Nathan Beam, because I've seen him a few times and I see the same problems of, like, I don't mind him, smart player, but projecting beyond here is tricky.
Yeah, so after I talked to you again, I went and watched another game of him, and he wasn't as good. But like, I still do see a lot of the smart off puck things, the smart complementary player things. He's never going to be the guy that drives the line. He's never going to be like the star. But when you put him with a guy that can play, put him with a guy that produces well, he keeps up. He's able to. He's a complementary player in transition. He's a complementary player in the offensive zone. He's not going to be the transition wizard. He's not going to be the first guy, but maybe he's the second guy in transition. He's not going to be the first guy in the offensive zone, but he's usually in position enough to get a good shot off, or he finds a scoring chance around the net, or he is able to make that connection pass. There are little things that I like about his game. But yeah, I think the production has been obviously way higher than expected, and I don't think that sticks around. But I think there's a lot to like about Nathan Beam's game in a like complementary role, in a take a swing on him in the second or third round and get a player that way, because he seems to be smart enough to play with players that are thinking a little bit faster and playing a little faster. And it's not that he's too slow. He just doesn't necessarily push the pace himself in a way.
Right. And the thing to me is, like, do guys that play like that in junior play like that in the NHL?
Yeah.
And it's generally no. So that's kind of where I kind of go, yeah, like probably someone else will regress into that role in the NHL. AJ, this is a good one for you from Totally Unbiased Steelheads fan. Thought on Adams and Litchfield.
Oh, you mean the guy? I know the one you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
The guy that so Will and I went to the Pink in the Rink game in October in Brampton, and Will pointed at him and said, "You see that guy? That guy does a bunch of cool stuff until the end of the play where it just kind of fizzles out. He's got that kind of vibe to him." And Will was 100% right, because right before he had done that, you'd made a play just like that, where I'm like, okay, and then it fizzled out, like, oh. And so I was gonna ask Will about him, but Will just spilled the beans and said, yeah, he does that all the time.
That's just how he is.
So he's fun, but
he had 5 points in a game against Guelph on the 27th, so there's that.
What I can say is I like him for the most part.
he is a player that I would give an AHL deal to or invite to a camp and go, impress me, son. Do what it is that you do, because he does everything but score, and he's really good at it. I mean, he takes a lot of penalties. You know, he's up to 32 penalty minutes in 14 games this year, but he does it by being a big, fast, evil jerk, and I like it. But
Oh yeah.
he's also kind of good, which is kind of interesting to me. He's a fun player to watch.
If
and,
he figures it out, man, he could be fun. Like
he could be fun.
He
Yeah,
could
like,
work. He could work in a
he could
bottom.
just, one step at a time, I feel like he could work himself up the pyramid, so to speak.
But we're fans 95% of the time, and then
It's
the
fun. He's a fun
5%,
one.
and the 5% where he doesn't finish is a little frustrating because it feels constant.
Right. Do you think 7 rounds is the right amount for the draft? I'll just say this: I'm team abolish the draft. I think the draft needs to go. Period. But that's neither here nor there. Tony, what do you think?
If you're going to have a draft, I think 7. I want to say 7 rounds is the right amount because I'm like, oh, like look at the value of guys like Ustinkov or Reber you could get in the 7th round.
Yeah.
But teams don't take them anyways. So 5 rounds is probably a little bit more realistic if you're going to have the draft, but I don't think they're changing it anytime soon.
I like it. I like the status
do
quo,
too.
honestly.
I am holding out the glimmer of hope that someday Tony and I are in the driver's seat for some of these things, because I can't tell you how many times people told me in last year's draft that everybody wanted to trade their 7th round pick, but nobody wanted another one, so there were no trades. And I was sitting there going like, oh, I'll give you future considerations for them if you want. I'll take swings. I think there are players that are still worth a swing that are left that nobody is picking, but nobody did it. So I guess in that sense, like a 7 round draft would work in our favor, because we would just go, I mean, there's probably guys that we'd like to at least keep the rights on. And if it costs us basically nothing, cool, right? Like, sure. Because to me, it's like, if you can find a player who is worth maybe a 7th round pick when you draft them, and you have, good knowledge that they'll be worth something someday, or at least maybe be valued by other teams, you draft a guy in the 7th round and you trade them for a 3rd round pick or a 5th round pick in 6 years, that you've done decently well, even if they're still a prospect and maybe not in the NHL. So give me all the 7th round picks. I don't care. I think there's always decent players that can be had all the time. Who knows? We might have ended up with our boy Ludwig Johnson, National League superstar Ludwig Johnson, or Swedish Hockey League superstar Jamiro Reber at some point. But nobody wanted to make picks, but they did anyway. So here we are. So in that sense, I like 7 rounds, but
so
I'll abolish the draft.
For example, you do this exercise where you draft your team every year. Yep. I've started doing it the last few years with the Detroit Red Wings picks because I'm not a fan of Detroit, but they are literally across the river and they were in a rebuild. So it made sense to start doing it with their picks. In the 6th round, I got Danilo Stinkov. The 7th round, I got Thomas Galvis. And then I also got Ryerson Leanders, who I really liked as a goalie, just to throw him in there. John Whipple in the 5th round, which is also where Detroit picked him. But like getting Ustinkov and Galvis in the 7th round, like I'm laughing at something like that because like it's, if we're ever in the driver's seat, I think some fan base is gonna go, man, our team's really good at drafting the 7th round because that one guy worked out one time and everyone else is at least exciting.
Right. I mean, yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like it's about perspective, like a lot of these guys don't work out. But the thing that kind of blew my mind, and to talk about Ustinkov, I mean, someone told me over the last couple of weeks maybe some reasons why he wasn't drafted, but I kind of went, right, but he was playing with one of the most prestigious, probably the most prestigious program in Switzerland at the highest level of hockey there, and did it most of the season and didn't look out of place, but just didn't score. So, but he gets overlooked, and the players that are picked anyway instead are depth CHL guys or college guys who are almost 3 years older than him. And it's like they're not playing, they haven't played a game of professional hockey Yet a guy like Ustinkov is going to play pro. He is playing pro hockey now,
Yep.
and he's going to keep playing pro hockey. And I probably would have left him in Sweden or Switzerland for 3 seasons and just play pro in Switzerland. And that, to me, that's an interesting discussion to be had, but apparently not, right? Like, apparently that's not convincing enough. But the world is not fair, and abolish the draft. Just kill it. Just
Nope,
just kill it
don't
dead.
do
Take
it.
it out back.
I don't
Just
know.
take it out
I
back.
kind of
the
like
old
it.
Yeller style.
I like
I mean,
status
it's a fun
quo, man.
experience. It's a fun experience. I just think it's silly.
It might be, but it's the silly I like.
Sure. Yeah, it is silly in a good way. Someone mentions that McQueen is Kirby Doc 2.0, and honestly, I'm inclined to sort of agree with that. I see similar echoes, I guess. Tony, how is your feeling on? Yeah, like pretty close. Who is our favorite player that nobody really talks about? I mean, I'm curious what AJ says about this, because you're the NHL guy. Do
you think?
I mean, I know it's a prospect, but I need time to think. But fire something out there, because you haven't talked much today.
I thought I've talked quite a lot recently, but I don't know. I would have said Timothy Liljegren, like, for my favorite NHL player that nobody talks about, but now he's getting talked about because he got traded. I want to die. Why
you mean
do
top
you do
unit
this
power
to
play
me?
quarterback Timothy Liljegren?
Yeah, man. No, I already miss him. I saw him in the San Jose colors, and I got sad.
Hey, he looked pretty good that game. I watched that
he
San Jose
did.
game. He looked
I know
pretty
he
good.
did. That's why I'm sad, because I know we lost. It's so so stupid.
I know this is dumb, but they lost 3-2. He was +2. That's funny.
Crushing third pair minutes as he always does.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, Tony. Do you have someone who you want people to talk about more that no one's really discussing, that we haven't gone into detail about today?
I don't know. Mikhail Gamzikov. Why not? He's fine. I love him.
All right.
Screw it.
Sure.
I'm like looking down my list. I'm like, who can I just say?
Yeah. I mean, I'll throw a Russian out there. I like Roman Bausov. That's a guy who I've kind of dug. If you like boring defensemen who are actually kind of decent. He's 6'5" or 6. He's listed. Oh my God. He's listed at 6'6".
You can't like him. He's too big.
185 pounds. So what I learned in school is you can the rule of thumb is about 5 pounds per inch. So if he were 6 feet tall, take 30 pounds off that, and that's about the equivalent weight. So that's 157 pounds, 6 foot tall player. So he's 6'6", but he skates really, really well. Plays pretty solid defensive hockey. He's playing 20 minutes a night for his junior team in Russia. I like him. And he's 6'6", so you can't counter that. Try me.
You can't teach that.
Gamzakov is 6 feet tall, I think, so I win. There you go. Winner, chicken dinner. I didn't have chicken for dinner. I shouldn't have.
What did you have?
I shouldn't lie. Honestly, we've been running around doing errands this evening, so I ended up with a fancy bagel cream cheese sandwich thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I'll probably round everything out with popcorn later or something.
I ate 8 slices of pizza throughout the course of this stream.
Jealous. I wish I had pizza. Tony, what was
I had
dinner?
Lebanese food.
Oh, that sounds great. Now
oh my God, man.
God.
I had homemade bazilla.
Just casually.
I'm a spoiled little boy.
Oh, you are a spoiled boy. Oh boy. Who do we think makes Team Canada for the World Juniors? Oh boy. How much time do we have?
We have 6 minutes.
Lots of good players. I don't
Colby Barlow.
Oh boy.
We really dog on him on this show, don't we?
A little bit. I try not to as much as I can.
Well, he's going to be the 13th forward.
He gets asked about. Yeah, I mean, he may very well be on the team.
Does he really? Does he get asked about that much? I think we bring him up more than he gets asked about, to be fair.
Shh.
Because of that saying, the saying we have.
Yeah, the saying is, what are the major differences between Berkeley Catton and James Haggins this year?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, I'd have to watch more of Haggins to have a better answer, but I don't think there's that much of a gap there. I thought Berkeley Catton was unbelievable last year. He's got like more quickness and skill, I think, in his game. Haggins is more northbound, give and go style guy, whereas Berkeley Catton just has quickness and agility that unlocks a lot of doors for him. But I don't know if you would think anything otherwise. But
Yeah,
Catton rocks.
I think as weird as this is gonna sound, they're the same player in different like models. Berkeley Catton is the quick version
Yeah.
of James Haggins, and James Haggins is the fast version of Berkeley Catton.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense in the world.
I could see that. If Jet Lachenko was eligible this year, roughly where would you have him ranked? Probably like
13th or 14th.
11. Probably like 11 for me. Like I think I like Carter Bear and Radim Murtka a little more, but like LJ Mooney I love, but I don't think I like him as much as Lachenko. Roger McQueen, Lyndon Lakovic, Cole Reshny, I put Lachenko ahead of those guys for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great example of when we do the AB of last year's draft class and this year's draft class. Because he probably ends up a lot higher than what I actually had him last year.
Yeah, and I had him pretty high last year. I really liked him, but yeah, he'd be higher. Hypothetical: Boston barely misses the playoffs, moves up to pick 3rd overall in the draft lottery. Who do you think they would pick between McQueen or Martone?
Oh, it's Martone. It's Martone.
Yeah, I think Martone. I think it would be Porter Martone pretty easily.
That
guy
close.
He fits everything they want.
He wears a C for a reason. He brings everything that the Bruins love, like you said. I think that's pretty cut and dry to me, at least. I don't know. They drafted Dean Letourneau last year, so maybe they just go with the big guy. But to me, Martone, I think, is just the total package.
He better not be a Bruin, but if he is, he better play with Fabian.
Who do you think is the most underrated out of the 24 A ratings on the Central Scouting list? I'll throw out a name. Underrated.
Cullen Potter. People don't like him as much as I do.
Cullen Potter. I think that's a good one. Other than that, a lot of these I don't really agree with, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. What's a comparable for Porter Martone? Among first overall pick and OHLers, I don't have the brain capacity to follow the rest of that question, but comparable for Porter Martone, to me,
you guys have thrown out Matthew Tkachuk.
Well, I think that's like peak.
Yeah.
That's like A+, everything goes right for him kind of vibe. Someone asked me about this actually on Twitter, and I had a decent. But Tony, you can throw something out there while I find this.
No, I was gonna say B+ Matthew Tkachuk. He does a lot of the same things. I like a lot of the offensive game. He has the same snarl, but I don't know if he has quite the offensive. It's hard to project a guy to be 110 point player or 100 plus point player.
I don't think he's that. Yeah,
I don't think he's as fast either.
No.
Yeah, certainly not.
Like Alex Tuck maybe comes to mind.
But Alex Tuck's too fast.
Super.
Yeah, he's fast too. Yeah, he's fast. Like Mark Stone. I feel like that's still. I don't think that's right.
No, because I think. Yeah.
I don't know.
He's an intense winger without the pace like that.
But he has skill.
Pace.
He can shoot. He's got skill.
God, he'd be so good if he was fast, man. He'd be.
Well, that's the thing. That's his only weakness, really. That's really it.
Oh, but in my books, that's such a big weakness to have. But that's just.
But I think he works around it so well.
He does. He does.
Maybe if Anze Kopitar were a winger, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kopitar's not a burner, but doesn't matter. Thomas Hertl, I don't know. I don't know.
I just pray for Porter to gain some explosiveness because man.
Yep. Time will tell.
He'd be ridiculous.
J-Milk throws out that we need to do a game tape with Brindley Caps, Great Britain hockey legend. So we'll try to put that on the list. We'll get to him maybe in October of next year.
0 points in 5 EIHL games.
Hey, probably plays 2 minutes a game.
Zero.
Zero.
Here's this play if he's sitting on the bench. Describe the game.
Yeah. What was that play like? What was your read of this play
Well-
that you weren't involved in because you were on the bench?
This
General.
the spot was kind of cold because
Yeah.
we were down a man. So I tried to wiggle around a little bit to warm up the spot, and it worked.
Well, you got to get the accent right. Where's he from in England? Chelmsford. What's a Chelmsford accent? If someone could tell me what a Chelmsford accent sounds like, I don't know. General thoughts on the first round slated defensemen, and who are some random ones you like outside the first? I mean, we'll go pretty quick here because we don't want to run super late. I mean, I really like Jackson Smith. I mean, obviously everybody loves Matthew Schaefer. Radim Mertka's a guy I've really liked. We've talked about Zeb Lindgren. I think Cameron Reed. Has been really good. I think he's only gotten better and better this year. The point production reflects that, but he was way better than I expected him. So those probably would be the ones that I'd throw out there.
Yeah, that's kind of the guys. I like Reese Hamilton, Blake Fiddler, as late first, maybe early second guys. Everyone loves Keishon Aitchison. Will's love and adored Artem Vilchinsky. And of course, Mikhail Gamzikov.
Yeah, Mikhail Gamzikov. That's a guy. He plays pro hockey in Russia, so that's a thing, but he's a guy. Jake McCabe for Norris.
No.
AJ? No. All right, next.
No. Got some nice skill, but it never results in anything. Like, he just jumps up and then kind of does nothing with the jump up and then has to skate his bum back.
Right. We're related to my Bruin question, but Carter Bear could also fit. Carter Bear would be a gross Boston Bruin, I feel like.
God, I hate it.
I would hate it. Yeah.
Yep.
Thoughts on the new Wheeler rankings? Actually, that would probably be a good time to mention that we actually have Scott Wheeler coming on Thursday. So we're going to be talking to him directly about his rankings. So you can come back, Luke, on Thursday. And
2 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Yes, he did talk a lot about genetics. So there's that. That's when you know you've gone really deep in the prospecting. When you're talking about genetics, that's when you've gone deep.
He's getting everyone's bone density like Lane Hudson.
Yeah. They're bone graphs. That's the only chart I need. Bone growth graphs. How would you currently order Frundell, Eklund, Nilsson, Drott, Yestreen? For me, I'll just go right down the list. Eklund, Nilsson, Frundell, Drott, Yestreen. But they're all in my first round. I love them all.
I think I have the same, but I think there's a debate between Drott and Frundell.
Oof. Spicy, but I like it.
And I loved Anton Frundell.
I still have faith. He was hurt. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway. Thoughts on the Toronto accent? I refuse to believe there's a Toronto accent.
There's a little bit of one.
It's that like
I know.
Grody.
Well, there's also Toronto Mans. Like, have you heard Toronto Mans?
Yeah. Toronto man's accent is what I'm imagining, and I hate that.
It's awful. I'm so ashamed.
I know.
All I can think about right now with the Toronto accent is Drake saying he was going to tear DeMar DeRozan's banner from the roof of the Scotiabank Arena because he was in Kendrick Lamar's video.
Yeah, Drake doesn't.
We'll leave that whole thing to be broken down with Sam one day.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's what we need. We should have Sam on for Rap Corner. Just that's what we need. We need just like Rap Drama Corner with Sam McGilligan. Okay,
but it exists. I say Toronto. Most people
Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah, Toronto. That's the way. That's the way you say it. Toronto.
Yep.
Say Detroit. Well,
Detroit.
Yay! You got it. Detroit.
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 My world was shattered.
I shattered that world.
Thoughts on Will Horkoff, and who are some of your favorite Nepo picks this year? I mean, Eric Nilsson is a Nepo pick technically. His dad was an NHLer, I think.
Michael Misa is technically a Nepo
Michael
pick.
Michael Misa's technically a Nepo pick. I don't know. Will Horkoff is okay. He's very okay. Of all the big boys on the U.S. national team, I like what's his name? Will Bell the most. But I don't know. Horkoff is a fine bottom six guy on that team, I think. I don't know. You?
He's a guy.
Yeah, he's a guy. What do you think of? Oh my God! What do you think of Simon Wang out of the OJHL, committed to BU next year? A strong skater. I mean, I actually have it penciled in on my calendar to go watch him when he comes to town in Burlington in a month or so. So I'm gonna go and watch him in person. The thing I'll say is this: the OJHL bar is so low. It is so low. So I get it. He's 6'6" and skates really well, but I've watched him and I tracked a couple of games of his, and he was not great. I don't know. Skates okay for a big boy. He has some really impressive individual moments, but his level of competition is like a 1 out of 10. It's just not. It's not great down there. I don't know if you've seen him at all this season, but he's a real adventure.
That's a great way to say it.
Yep.
You think I hate the QMJHL? Wait till you hear my thoughts about the OJHL.
Ontario Junior A. My God. Dude, it's bad, man. I don't know.
Hey, that league employs one of my friends as a commentator. True story.
Right. The list
Poor
of players that were drafted out of the OJHL to make the NHL is very small. I think it's Brett Ritchie. One of the Ritchie brothers was one of them. And I think that might be it. I'm trying to think of other ones.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I don't know. Someone says, so Nathan Beam is this year's Tarek Parasak. Well, I don't think that's that far off base, but
I think he's a little bit better than Tarek.
I think which is a
first round pick.
Yeah, I think so too. Is it safe to say Nikita Prishkopov is better than Ivan Demidov? Yeah, I mean, Prishkopov made it to the NHL and Ivan Demidov hasn't, so clearly one is a loser. The Hawks drafted Dustin Byfuglien in the 8th round, and that worked out. That is true. There were some gems. I think Pekka Rinne was a 9th round pick or something like that. Whatever.
Yeah, one of Datsuk or Zetterberg were like a 9th or a 10th round pick.
I think it was Datsuk.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah.
We each get a wish of which NHL moment in history would you wish to change. Changing the draft is not an option. Oh my God.
Well, I'm changing the Leafs to winning a cup somewhere down the line or somewhere.
But
earlier.
moment. Oh.
Ooh.
Like the first thing my brain goes to is I want Dominik Hasek to win a Stanley Cup in Buffalo. But that's a series of moments that would have to change.
Is it? Or would it just be
they
that
got
the
swept
no
in the
goal?
Stanley Cup final. Oh, right. The no goal in overtime against Dallas. That is a thing that happened. I thought Buffalo only went to the Stanley Cup final one time. That's true.
You could
maybe
change that.
Buffalo scoring an overtime goal against the Dallas Stars. As much as I love the Dallas Stars, I get it. There are fans out there that are big fans of the Stars. I love you.
You're gonna hurt Grav's feelings.
I was gonna say, Grav, you're a friend of the show, but I'm sorry. I would take away your Stanley Cup and give it to Dominik Hasek and the Buffalo Sabres.
Hey, he wasn't even alive for that Stanley Cup, to be fair.
That's true.
Neither was I.
I screamed at the TV when that happened. I was like, his foot was in the crease, like blah blah blah, because I was a big Dominik Hasek fan. Best goalie of all time, easily. I don't know, Tony. You got one?
This sounds so mean, but I would just the 2019 first round series between Toronto and Boston, I would make that game go to overtime, but also still Toronto lose.
I hate you. I'm not working on this project anymore unless you apologize. No, I'm kidding.
Jeez. Goodness gracious. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I would change one of those Leafs. I remember 2013 with the Bruins so distinctly, because I remember saying they're not coming back at 4-1. I said that. We bought a new television. Like, we're making it. They're not coming back. Me as a 12-year-old child, just not believing it. I'm changing that overtime goal because that was so painful.
Wow. All right. Good question, though. No one really talks about Noah Karilainen, and he's definitely a top 3,000 talent. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. He's definitely in the top 3,000 hockey players for his age group in the world, probably. Tony, favorite Kid Cudi songs?
Erase Me, Trapped in My Mind, Cuddy's Own, Mr. Rager.
I really wish I had the cojones to write a song that was the Scouch Zone or
Yeah.
something, or the Bill Palace or something. Just name it after me, and I don't know,
You still could. You still
I
could.
still could. There's still time. I'm not dead yet. A Chelmsford accent sounds like what Americans seem to think we all sound like over here. But the thing is, Americans and Canadians have all different kinds of ideas of what a British accent sounds like. Like, it's Tuesday and it is one of them. Like, but of what? Like that.
Hello, love.
I love
Hello, love.
Roadman. Honestly, Roadman's my favorite.
Roadman.
Have you not heard what Roadman sounds like?
Roadman. Chav. No, I don't. That's just a Wikipedia article that popped up.
No, but Roadman's the best. It's like, what's a good way to describe it without sounding like I'm racist?
Oh, I googled it, and they said it's like Wagwan. Wagwan, bruv.
It's like, you remember when the Big Shaq song came out?
Oh yeah,
That's what Roadman accent is.
Boom.
Yeah.
Love that.
Skitty pop pop pop. It's awesome.
Skibbity. Yeah. Hyman was drafted out of the OJ. That's true. Zach Hyman was an OJHL pick. Actually, at one time I was on the phone with his dad. That was weird. Why is Joshua Waugh the next Wayne Gretzky? Luckily for Gretzky's point record, Joshua Waugh is still in the AHL. That's a good one. Because he's that good. He's that sick. Thoughts on OJHL legend Alexander Levshin, the Ukrainian goaltender playing for the Toronto Patriots? He is, I've seen him a couple times. He's a guy. I thought he was okay. I don't know anything about goaltending.
I have not jinxed the Leafs. That is not true.
Yeah. Scouse accents are best. I disagree. Personally, I'm just a fan of the British monarchy and everything they stand for and always have stood for. So the British monarchy and their posh London accents, that's what I live for.
Britain first.
I can't help myself. That's just how it is.
We gotta
Anyway,
sing Britannia now.
Oh boy, yeah, exactly.
At God's command.
Yeah,
I won't go all of it, but
yeah, we don't need to. I think we're good.
I'm glad I'm here for this episode.
Yeah, exactly. This is a good time.
Yeah, and you're 13 minutes overtime too. Welcome to the show, Tony.
Yeah,
we love you.
We're not that far off. We're good. We're doing well. This is a good time. I don't know. Any final parting words, Tony, before we let you go? Again, thanks for joining. I believe Tony is going to be more of a common showing here on the show. We're going to have some good times Monday nights.
I've coaxed him into it.
Oh, okay.
I'll pop around. I'll be here.
Yeah.
I gotta promote my game tapes.
Yeah.
Gotta be self-serving.
He's the new Sam of our show.
So with that said, Sam McGilligan, terrible person.
Yeah, terrible. The worst.
Watch game tape with Tony. Landon DuPont's cool. The cold open is one of the funnest moments of the interview. The entire interview is really great, though. Michael Meese is awesome. Cameron Schmidt's coming. We're gonna have a good time.
And Carter Bear
subscribe and all the things that Will normally says.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Again, if you subscribe to scouching.ca, you'll get early access to all of these videos. You'll get access to the other stuff we're putting together early as well as exclusive blog content, and you'll help pay our bills. So if you do that, that's great. So thanks very much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Again, thanks, Tony, for showing up. This was a good time. Not, again, ignoring your baseball tournament that you just being a deadbeat. Thanks for joining us.
And he did horribly.
Awesome.
I thought it was baseball. I must have misread it.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah,
we almost got it right. Close enough. Their sports are similar, right? Kind of.
He's a loser anyways.
He's a loser anyway.
Holy crap.
Yeah, we can save this. We can save this for when your child is older and
he's getting married.
Fun.
Just throw it on. He's a loser.
One of these days, I'm gonna send the video that Joel sent me one time of me doing the Detroit Red Wings official podcast and my kid in the background. Like,
oh, I remember that. Yeah,
that was such a good video.
Yeah, that's a classic Tony Ferrari moment. That's in the lore. Anyway, thanks for joining again. Thanks to everyone for watching. This was a good time. AJ, you have any parting words before we go and we get to go to bed?
Yeah. Go Leafs, go. And plan the parade. Doesn't matter. You can lose to Jordan Bennington. I don't care. I'll never
lost.
give
They lost-
up.
they lost
Keep
both
believing.
games.
Don't care. Go Leafs.
They're done.
Go. Good night, everybody.